I am sitting here today with Tobias Schuler. How you doing, Toby?
Doing well.
Awesome. So this is your first podcast you mentioned?
First ever. Yeah. Well, actually, I just remembered I did do a podcast once but it was like over, I don't know, like Zoom or like FaceTime. I just realized I have been on one before. Do you know Bill Wong, Dr. Swole on YouTube?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
sounds familiar.
Not that I'm trying to like promote other people.
No, go ahead. That's totally fine.
But he actually, he's been running like a fitness podcast for, I don't know, like maybe 5 years or.
Okay, nice.
I don't know, something like that. It was like 5 years ago though. Maybe 4 years.
Okay, so quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, that's like we were just talking before we started recording here about the failure rates of podcasts.
Yeah.
And like I myself, I enjoy this. Like I really do enjoy this. It's nice to like just to get to know people better. And I am interested in people that are kind of not in the same industry, but it's nice with people that are in the same industry to like discuss modalities and see where they've come and what they've accomplished. And just, although obviously at this point in time, my platform is not big, but to give them a platform to speak on and, you know, kind of just create more awareness for people that are out there and stuff. And so it is a lot of fun. Yeah. Like it is a lot of fun.
When it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of regurgitating someone else's material, but like long form content, like a podcast or, you know, a long YouTube video, like it gives you the opportunity to actually go into detail about like what you do or why you do it, or even just, I don't know, like a modality or something without being constrained to like X amount of words or X amount of time. If you're like doing a 15-second reel, like you're really just trying to get some clicks because you're like, okay, that's it. Like no one has the attention span for more than a 15-second video or a 30-second video or whatever. So it is kind of cool. Like the rise of podcasts is giving people this like new not audience, but like a new platform to like do long form content that people actually listen to.
Yeah, because you can do it while you're driving, while you're cleaning.
Chores, exactly.
Yeah, like I do the video. I like having the video because I personally like watching podcast videos, but obviously this also goes to Spotify with no video and it goes to Apple and everything. And so, it's a great way for people to do that because, not everybody has time to sit there and like truly focus. And obviously, like, so for me, like the YouTube content that's where I'm trying to put like the informative stuff where, yes, you are going to have to focus.
Right.
But then the podcast, which yes, it goes on YouTube, but that is let's just, chat. Let's just chit chat and have a good time, learn some stuff about each other, learn some stuff about you. And then, it's less focus for people. So then they're actually interested in that. Because as you mentioned, with Instagram, like you only have 15 seconds. And I am doing my absolute best to do short reels, and they're still like a minute long.
It's super hard. Right. Cause I went in and it's kind of annoying to like look at your insights and see like posts you thought you like put so much hard work into. You're like, this is a sick post. And it gets like, I don't know, 10 likes or something versus like some stupid video you post about. Like I did a video it wasn't stupid at all, but it was like this push-up video where I was doing push-ups
I saw you
the day
300 or something like that, right?
And it was literally I was like, I'm just gonna post this like to make it like a permanent thing that people can see because it was just on my stories otherwise. I had no reservations about it. I was literally like, I'm just gonna post it, and it's had I think like the highest views out of any of my reels. And it's not even like curated content. It was literally just like, here's me doing 300 push-ups for 12 hours or whatever, like throughout 12 hours. And it provides no value besides maybe like motivation or something. But I was like, that's the video that gets the most views. And like, but either way, like the whole insight thing is frustrating sometimes because you're like, damn it. So I have to like try and whittle it down to like 30 seconds every time I post, or 50 seconds. Cause that's what the algorithm is showing is wanted or something like that. So I don't know. It's just
well, when I got my first ever dislike on YouTube, I was like, how dare you?
I'm gonna find you.
It was hard. And this is the society that we're in though, is like we are completely based around the whole likes and everything. And now I am not somebody who is looking for likes for the attention, the aspect of like, look at my body and stuff. I'm looking for the attention aspect of like, I would like to grow my business. I would like to reach more clients. So I do take the likes into consideration, because it's like, obviously the more likes I have, the more it's going to move up in the algorithm, and more likes and comments, and the more exposure I'm going to get. But one thing that I did kind of learn that helps me like swallow that a little better and not be so like butthurt about it is there have been a lot of people who have never liked my posts that have come out and messaged me and being like, hey, I was watching this video and this, or this and that. And it's like, oh, so people actually really are paying attention to it.
They might just not always.
Yeah, they're just not hitting the like button or any of that kind of stuff, right? And like I said, that used to bother me too. But then in reality, it's, well, now I'm at the point where I just appreciate that people are paying attention and that they are taking something away from this. Because I shared something to my story like last week, and it was something like someone posts a naked photo or half naked photo and gets 20,000 likes, and then educational content only gets 20 likes. I've come to the realization that Instagram is not for educational content. Right? Because you cannot educate someone in 15 seconds. It is for the flashy. It is for the sex appeal. So you kind of have to take advantage of that and utilize that. Funnel them into where you do provide the educational content, which is the YouTube, which is the podcast, things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never thought about it that way, because like I do, use that platform for my business in that sense. But I think I've been trying to maybe educate too much on it. Or, I mean, as a lot of people do, like there is successful like educators, but a lot of them are successful on YouTube. And probably because they drive people to that from their Instagram or whatever, then it's kind of...
and it's a lot easier to educate people when you already have that big following, when you already have that respect, or like the credentials help a lot too, is a reality of it. Like, if you have some letters behind your name, that kind of also helps draw people in and actually focus into your content. But like a lot of it is hooks as well. And that's what I've been learning lately.
Like the catchy.
Like a caption or a photo or something to actually hook people. So like lately I've been starting with things that over the years with working with clients that are very like relatable. So, for example, I used to have sleep apnea. So when I met individuals with sleep apnea, I could call it out right away and they'd be like flabbergasted. Well, it's because I could see lines from the mask. Something so simple and obvious, but if you're not used to that, you wouldn't be able to pick that out. But I could pick that out because I was so self-conscious of my lines when I would wear my sleep mask. And so I could pick that out. And so that right there was that hook. It was a simple hook. Or like one that I'm going to put out recently, and I don't know if you knew this, this is highly associated. Have you ever had a dream of falling off a cliff before?
Maybe.
So, why you're hesitant? Because you're like, not to put anyone else down, but you're quite a healthy individual. Usually, I would say I have yet to meet someone who has had that dream and it's associated with the blood sugar crash. So it's your blood sugar crashing at night. And that's why when you wake up and your heart's racing and you're sweating, it's because you had to use more stress hormones to bring that blood sugar back up.
Interesting.
And so then that's what wakes you up in that panic or whatever. And the worse it is, the more panicked you wake up. Right. And so when I have this conversation with individuals that do have blood sugar dysregulation and we correct that blood sugar dysregulation, they no longer have those dreams. Or you talk to people who have been in pretty good shape and healthy their whole life. They're like, oh, I'd never really had that dream. And so
that's fucked up.
It's highly associated with blood sugar crash. So anyways, that's my hook. Like, hey, have you ever dreamt of falling off a cliff? There's my hook. And someone's going to go, you know what? I actually have. And then,
it's all about.
But it's so much work. Like content creation is so much work. And I don't mean that like I'm not like bitching about it. It's just, there is a lot of work involved. It's not as easy as just coming on and speaking and hoping for the best. Like, you actually have to put in work in like the editing. I don't know if you saw any of my recent ones where I'm doing like the flashy, because it's called pattern change. So you change from like maybe a side view, or like you zoom in and zoom out, change the captions and how you keep people interested. Right. It was a 1.5 minute long video. It took me over 2.5 hours to film and edit and everything. Because cut, paste, captions, this and that. Now I'm getting quicker now. But there's a lot that goes into it. So that's the ones that when you post them and you get minimal likes, you're like, damn. That was a lot of work I put in for
edited that
minimal
for hours.
Yeah, right. And now I can also understand it too from like, let's say you post like a body shot and you get minimal likes. Like, yeah, that could affect someone's confidence for sure. So it's a tough game to play and you have to be very careful. But for people like us with our businesses, because how much of the online portion do you do?
I'd say I'm like maybe, I want to say like a little less than half.
Okay.
Maybe like 30% is online clients.
So you're more personal training.
And yeah, I'd say probably 70% is in person. So, I mean, it's just kind of naturally came about that way. Like through COVID, we were like fully online.
Yeah.
Because we just had to pivot.
Yeah.
And then I love the in-person. That's the thing is, I actually don't love doing online coaching. Mm-hmm. It's not that I like hate doing the actual coaching, but like it doesn't fill my cup, I guess, as they say. Like I get a lot out of personal interactions, like working one-on-one with clients, even just talking to someone in person versus over the phone or over a video screen or over text. Like, I don't know, I just don't get anything out of that. And not that I'm like what I need, but in terms of like fulfillment, you do have to consider what makes you happy in that sense, right? So, I know like as soon as like we kind of came out and the gyms opened up again, it was like I couldn't wait to basically start training clients in person again because that's just kind of where I thrive.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, I also think your clients thrive with in person if they have the means to do it. Like that's going to be more effective than an online program.
That personal touch.
Yeah. And personal accountability too. It's like I'm literally at the gym ready to put you through the workout. Like that's way more motivating than a text being like, hey, did you hit your workout today?
Yeah, you get it done? Yeah, for sure. So how about for the people that don't know you, let's tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some backstory, where you're from.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, I mentioned to you, like I was born in Switzerland, but I was like super young when we moved. So
what age?
Age 4. Okay. So really young. My parents moved to Canada and like, it's actually really funny. I like heard this story later in my life where I found out like my parents didn't even have a plan coming to this country, like in the sense of like they literally, I guess they flew in to Calgary and they bought a truck and a camper, and then they just started driving around to different farms being like, who wants to sell us their farm? Like, you know what I mean? Like I think they knew some people and like had some contacts, but it was like very much like, let's go there and figure it out once we're there versus like having, you know, something already set up or like a place already with like a down payment.
Like I love people.
Oh yeah. But they also like moved halfway across the world away from all their families, right? Like they're, I don't know, I guess like adventurers or like those type of people. Like I know people that would never leave the city that their family's in because they're like, no, I need to be close to my family. Right. And it's not that it's like you have better family values. It's like maybe like an attachment thing or something like that. But either way, they didn't feel super attached. They moved halfway across the world. And I grew up on a farm, an organic beef farm. My parents are kind of like hippies.
Do you have any siblings?
Sorry?
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah. One brother, older brother, and then an older sister. So I'm
so they went through the same experience too.
Yeah. They're both older. So grew up on a farm, just like no TV. Literally, I had no TV growing up. Just like always just got the boot, go outside.
That's probably why you're so healthy.
Like grew up running around the bush, like making bows and arrows and
that's amazing
stuff like that. But then just funny enough, like I moved to Calgary and actually dropped out of university. I went to like business school out of all things, and like apparently my whole family was like, what are you doing in business school? Like, you're not like this like businessy guy. They were all kind of like confused as to why I chose it. I didn't even know why. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I just like picked like marketing or something because I thought that might.
I feel like that's the most common. Yeah. I hear that a lot. Like even I had my friend Chad on the podcast, same thing. He said he went into business and then went out. Yeah. And I feel like when someone is not entirely sure what they want to do with their life, they go in the business route. I wonder what kind of like inspires that.
I think it's just like the appeal of like wearing a suit and making money or something.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that was literally my thought. I was like I wanted to like dress nice because I was like a little bit into like dressing nice when I was like getting out of high school. You know, like I'd wear I don't know, collared shirts and ties or whatever, like just nicer clothes. So I was like, I don't know, kind of followed that like little bit of enjoyment out of like dressing nice or fancy, and just was like, what can I do that I do that every day? So I think that was maybe the idea, but either way, I lasted like a month, maybe 2 months. Like I did not last long. I was like, fuck this. This is stupid. And I'm not that good at school. Like I think I might have like a bit of a attention, I don't like to call it a disorder, but like I have problems focusing on shit I don't care about.
Yeah,
and it is a form of like, I actually just heard Andrew Huberman talk about this today.
Like ADHD kind of.
Literally like ADHD, like you give a person with ADHD something they really like, they will be zoned in, right? You give me some like random hypertrophy, like research. I'll read 1,000 words on like some technique to increase muscle size, but you give me like a same, sized like paper on like math or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, something I could care less about. Like, give me 10 words and I'm out of there.
Yep.
But
it's like watching a movie.
Yeah.
You're not going to watch the movie if you're not interested in the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always said that. I said, like, do you actually have ADHD or are you just not interested?
Yeah.
Right.
They're kind of saying that it's like, I don't know, that it's still kind of like the same thing, like that. I guess maybe it's just a way to term that disinterest, but they're saying like people with ADHD, like they don't necessarily have it in all walks of their life. They just have it in things that they're not interested in. Whereas like people without ADHD, like I know people that can sit down and study a textbook or go through school of shit they don't care about, and they can get really good grades and they can understand the concepts and they can retain all that information and understand it without having any interest in it. And it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
But it's apparently like the dopamine.
Yeah. So I was actually in comments. So
threshold or like some way of they can create or release dopamine doing things they don't necessarily.
But it's also
about.
So what it is, with a lot of the missing key ingredient of this is like when you look at the neurotransmitters. So dopamine. So that is when you look at people showing interest in subjects and actually like, putting the work in when it's something that they're actually not interested in, that you could look at as dopamine, because dopamine is the get stuff done.
The motivation thing, right? Like
but the focus, the learning and focus, that's acetylcholine. So look at dopamine as your engine and horsepower.
Yeah.
Acetylcholine is your accelerator.
Yeah.
So most people are walking around with this big freaking, Hemi big block or whatever with just a little tiny Toyota Prius accelerator, right?
Yeah.
And this is why we have like higher levels of ADHD and whatnot, because we cannot like control that dopamine.
Yeah.
That was a big issue of mine because of where my genetics works. I did genetic testing, and it's called PEMT gene, which is responsible for the production of phosphatidylcholine within the body. It was just slowed right down.
Right.
So like to actually so I had tons of energy and I could move and do things and my metabolism was good, but to actually sit down and focus and learn, I didn't start to improve upon that because I dropped out of grade 9, I think.
Right. Wow.
It was grade 9. I wanted to go work and make money because I just hated school and everything, right? And then
why am I doing this?
Came around, turned my health around, realized this is what I want to do. So then I actually had to get back to school and learn how to focus and everything. And that's where I learned improving upon the phosphatidylcholine aspect. That's the building block for acetylcholine.
Yeah.
That is your learning and focus neurotransmitter, right? And so then when you look at the other spectrum, you look at like ADD, that's more the dopamine. They got that little, 1.3 liter with Daihatsu, whatever, right? And so they just have a smaller engine. So they don't have a lot of dopamine. So their mind is very sluggish.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between, because people like to call ADD and ADHD the same.
Sure.
Right? The difference is ADHD is, hyperactive.
Yeah.
And ADD is the more sluggish, is the slower.
Yeah.
Right? And I think more people believe they have ADHD, which would make a lot of sense because you burn through a lot of acetylcholine. Yeah. And choline is already scarce in the diet. Yeah. We talk about how like eggs are high in choline meat. It's already scarce in the diet.
Yeah.
Right? And so we use a lot of that choline methyl donors and everything. And so dopamine's not hard to try to produce though, because you just look at your phone. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Look at your phone and your body goes, okay, let's start.
Stimulates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like tyrosine is more readily available than choline is in the diet. And that's your building block for dopamine. And then you have things like L-dopa, mecanoporines, like these things are more readily available rather than for building, rather than for phosphatidylcholine and building acetylcholine.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why most of us have the ADHD, because we're just all over. There's so much going on in life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, you know, you're coming to my office, look at everything that's got going on.
And that's the thing, like, you know, kids growing up these days, like, have so much constant stimulation, so much information coming in constantly. Like, we didn't grow up with that. Like, I grew up before the cell phone, right? Or like, I grew up through the rise of the cell phone.
Because you're how old right now?
30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But like, I still remember dial-up. I still remember like real phones. Like, you know what I mean?
Be on the phone.
Not this phone, this phone. Yeah. And like, yeah, like it's a different world now with how much constant stimulation. So like, I totally understand how people are like, I don't know, dopamine challenged, or like, you know, like where they have no ability to either like restrict like their constant like dopamine bursts or vice versa. Like maybe their production is fucked up because of the constant stimulation. I don't know how a lot of that works. Like I'm just kind of slowly learning about all that stuff, but I'm curious how you changed your, I guess, I think you said your acetylcholine like production, or like.
Yeah. So you got to kind of look at like, okay, well, why most people, like, although I mentioned it's scarce in the diet, it's usually not the diet. Like if you're eating a well-rounded nutritional protocol, it's usually not the diet's fault. It's like, oh, you're just not getting enough choline. There's something causing you to burn through it. Or are you familiar with methylation?
No.
So methylation, the simplest way I can put it is it's responsible for like things like detoxification, neurotransmitter production and clearance, hormone production and clearance. But where it really catches a big name is turning specific genes on and off. So when you talk about poor methylation, this is where you look at like diseases that run in family, because it's like, oh, cancer runs in my family. Well, what happens is a lifestyle that promoted poor methylation caused your body to act on a genetic SNP, which is a single nucleotide polymorphism. So I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but just in case if anyone's new, think of a genetic SNP as a ladder, right? And your genetics as a ladder, and you're climbing this ladder up to optimal health and wellness. If you have a genetic SNP, you have a broken step on that ladder. And if you are poorly methylating, instead of stepping over that broken step and continuing your climb, you're going to step on that broken step and continuously fall down. Yeah. And you're going to have trouble achieving optimal health and wellness. That's kind of it's a very complex topic, but that's the simplest way I can explain it. And so my methylation was significantly compromised. And so think of it as, have you heard of MTHFR gene?
No.
So that one's becoming pretty common. Everybody's talking about, oh, I have an MTHR defect and all this genetic SNP and everything. And so that's your methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase.
Okay.
What that is the starter for your engine. Think of it as that.
Yeah.
So that's your folate cycle.
Yeah.
So that's why when you talk pregnancy, they really push folate. Yeah. You're now methylating for two people. There's a much higher demand. Yeah. You need to make sure you can start your engine. And then you have the methionine cycle, which look at that as your engine. Then you got like the SAM cycle, you got the homocysteine cycle. That's how I kind of put together as a vehicle. And you want to make sure your vehicle actually rotates, actually moves. So you got to make sure the engine is turning. You got to make sure the drivetrain is turning. And then you have to make sure that the wheels are turning. Yeah. And so if one of those systems is compromised, you're not going to be turning the engine, which is not going to turn the transmission, which is not going to turn the wheels. And then, so you look at like glutathione production. Yeah. Glutathione production is heavily impacted by methylation. Estrogen clearance. When you talk about estrogen dominance, usually that's due to poor methylation. Now, methylation is not the root cause. Something caused that poor methylation. Yeah. Right? But seeing, so I had SIBO. So I had small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I was pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol. And I had significant overgrowth of like autoimmune bacteria and everything. Yeah. So it was addressing the microbiome, which improved my methylation, which then improved my response to produce phosphatidylcholine, which then raised my acetylcholine levels. I also supplement though.
Yeah.
I take alpha GPC.
Yeah.
I take phosphatidylcholine in liposomal form. So I use those measures as well to help improve acetylcholine, because I just like, I'm always on the computer. I'm always talking to people. I'm always trying to learn. So you're just burning right through it. So I use the necessary substrates to keep that up. And that's like, when I had the conversation with people about ADD or ADHD medications, when you look at what they do, is they usually act on dopamine pathways.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why 2 avenues why they work great and then stop working is, one, that they're going to pretty much block the reuptake of dopamine.
Yeah.
Is what they're going to do. But your body responds to this, and it down regulates receptors within the brain, and it increases the enzymes that break down dopamine. So this is why when you go off of your Vyvanse or your Adderall or your Dexedrine or Ritalin, you have those, what we call withdrawals.
Yeah.
Because you have the increased enzyme and downregulated receptors, so you're not doing a lot with dopamine until you take that medication again.
Yeah.
But the medication will also disrupt methylation, but also, because you're getting this newfound dopamine initially, you're burning through acetylcholine.
Yeah.
You're not supporting acetylcholine, you're supporting dopamine, but you're not supporting acetylcholine.
Yeah.
And this is where people get, once again, the withdrawals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so when it comes down to like neurotransmitter, the big thing is methylation, but then how do we make sure that you are methylating properly? You look at the microbiome.
Yeah.
You look at the microbiome and its ability to handle what you are throwing at yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever food you're ingesting, whatever water you are drinking, whatever air you are breathing, it has to go through the gut and the liver and everything. And as long as that's efficient, you should be methylating properly.
Yeah.
And then also, like, genetics goes such a long way too.
Sure.
Right? Like, people can just be born with just really great genes that keep methylation going as it should.
Yeah.
Right? But you got to be careful, because you can also over-methylate. So you don't just want to take a bunch of methyl donors, like S-adenosylmethionine, for example, is a great methyl donor.
Yeah.
You don't want to take a bunch of that. Like, if I take it too much for too long, I'm cracked out. Like,
you're overstimulated.
You're over-methylated,
Yeah.
right? So, like, when you begin to learn and you get into those avenues, you can understand the psyche of a lot of things. Saying goes, like, we all know that majority of, well, all your neurotransmitters, but we hear this a lot, of serotonin is produced in the gut.
Yeah.
So this is why research and clinics and everything.
95% of your serotonin?
I wouldn't say that high. I think they say 80 or 85.
Okay.
Either way, it's a lot. Yeah. Either way, it's a lot. So if your GI tract is compromised, you're not going to be making a lot of serotonin.
Yeah.
And most people know I work with a lot of gut cases. Like, I use GI maps and I work with a lot of extreme gut cases. And when we go into these gut cases, you have to break things apart. So you're releasing bad things, but you have to do this to get the job done.
Yeah.
Well, so it just makes things 10 times worse. So people just become absolutely miserable, cranky, poor sleep, everything. It's that true statement. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can wholeheartedly say, because I went through that myself, I've had to do it twice, it's worth it in the end.
Yeah.
You just become a whole different person. My mind is capable of things that I never would have thought possible.
Wow.
The knowledge that I have, which is still this much, which is extremely minimal, is something that I never fathomed that I would have ever obtained.
Yeah.
And just because of how I used to be.
Yeah.
And so correcting that stuff is like, just changes your life.
Yeah.
It just changes your life. And it's one of the greatest things I could have ever put myself through.
Yeah.
It was hard as hell. But focusing on, okay, what is the actual root cause? And we could look, okay, well, like I said, I had SIBO and everything, but what caused that? Then you have to go back even further and figure out what caused that, and then change your life around that. And that's why trauma is so big, because trauma is one of the most powerful, especially unresolved trauma is one of the most powerful causes of health complications.
Yeah.
Because of what it does to every physiological aspect of your being.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard a lot about, like, a lot of, I guess, autoimmune issues are often linked directly to trauma.
Yeah. And that's also too, because estrogen. So something that I'm going to start doing, and if you want to get involved too, not that I don't know what, like, because you're training yourself, but I'm going to start offering like prizes or winning. So I did a pop quiz on my story.
Okay.
And I asked, I'm going to turn this into a post. But I said, why? Because women are 80% more likely to contract an autoimmune disease than men.
Right.
And so I asked that. I said, well, what's the deal here, right? Does anybody know? And I didn't have a lot of engagement. And so that's why I think I'm going to start offering like, okay, if you get this answer correct, and like the harder it is, the better the prize is going to be.
Yeah.
But I'll say it here now. The reason women are much more susceptible to autoimmune diseases is because of estrogen, because estrogen promotes like more B cell production.
Right.
So your adaptive immune, so they have stronger immune systems.
Yeah.
But then too much estrogen, too strong, the immune system starts attacking tissues.
Yeah.
Right. But also too, the podcast that I released yesterday was on female sex hormones.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning that like so many women have low levels of progesterone. Progesterone can suppress Th2. And although that sounds bad, looking at it is it actually balances out the immune system.
Right.
Because if you got high estrogen and low progesterone, you're overstimulating Th2. You're creating way too many T cells, and then you eventually just start, because like it's like having people around with nothing to do. Well, we got to do something, so then they start attacking tissues.
Yeah.
Right. And then also too, when you look at high levels of estrogen, processed diets, destroying the gut, mycotoxins, biotoxins, and everything, compromising your tight junctions, allowing these molecules through. Chicken can resemble a molecule within your body. It can resemble a protein tissue within your body.
Yeah.
So you continuously eat chicken, setting off the immune system. Next thing you know, it starts, these B cells and T cells start going, okay, well, this looks really familiar. Let's attack it.
Yeah.
And then you can get an autoimmune disease that way as well. Right. And so, but that trauma could have led to all that stage happening, the increased estrogen, the compromise of tight junctions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why trauma is so powerful. Like it's so powerful in the damage that it can create within people.
Yeah.
And trauma is very subjective as well, because like you have like, maybe this is not the great example, but let's take an old farmer.
Yeah.
His dog gets hit by a truck. Well, there goes Charlie, right? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like farmers are really tough.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's hurting that his dog was killed. If one of my dogs died, I'd probably be stepping in front of that truck too.
Yeah.
Like, so trauma is very subjective as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's trauma to someone might not be trauma to another.
It's like the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's happened.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
it can be from two very different worlds, but if it impacts you severely, right? That is what it is. So.
Okay, so we went way off of track of getting to know you. So I love the nerd out, by the way.
I couldn't tell.
It wasn't obvious. Okay, so you moved from Switzerland at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And your parents were looking for farms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously you found one.
They settle on a farm way up in northern Alberta.
What's northern Alberta? Like
Grand Prairie, but further west.
Okay.
Almost by the like BC border. So grew up on the farm, just I don't know. I guess typical farm life, you're just like working. Working for the roof over yet? No, I'm just kidding. No, it was fine. It was like, but like, in a way, like kind of isolating, right? Because you're like, we were half an hour from the nearest town. Like that's like where we went to school and stuff. So you're pretty far out. Like, I guess your family are your closest friends in a way because you're around them constantly.
Yeah.
And you obviously have friends from school, but like you definitely don't hang out with them every single day. Like let's say a kid growing up in the city that's like, I'm going over to Billy's house, Billy's house is a mile away or a kilometer away. Like I'm not going there all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're doing a lot of like, I don't know, just random shit. I grew up hunting. Funny enough, skateboarding. We like
really?
Built a crazy like skate park in our barn.
That's so random.
Yeah, it was random, but like my brother and I were like super into that. But yeah, kind of just did what we did as kids.
How long did you live on the farm then?
Like till I was 18.
Oh.
They
out at 18?
Yeah, they just sold it like a couple of years ago.
Oh,
so they've had it for like 25 years. But yeah, once I finished high school, I moved to Calgary.
What was that like then, going from farm life to city life?
And
why Calgary?
So my brother and sister were already here.
Okay.
They kind of all, I guess, every 2 years, we're all 2 years apart. Every 2 years, a kid moved to Calgary, kind of thing. And I just moved here because I was like, yeah, it's a city. I already know a couple people there.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, I mean, and like we like lived together when I first moved there and stuff. So, or moved here. But to be honest, like it wasn't like a really huge culture shock or anything like that. Like it wasn't like had never seen a city before or anything, but it was, yeah, I didn't really like feel much shock besides maybe like that little bit of like, I guess like anarchy that like kids growing up on a farm can kind of do whatever they want, right? Like, you know, we shoot guns, we drive vehicles before we have licenses, like that. So, and like, not that I'm, you know, going around Calgary shooting guns, but it's like you have like maybe a little bit more of a rebellious side because you haven't had many rules. So like, you know, there was definitely some, you know, some things that maybe I did that were a little stupid, and you know.
Did you get caught?
No, I've never. I mean,
it's only stupid if you get caught.
Yeah, once or twice, you know, maybe ended in the back of a police van or something, but no charges were ever made.
It's like life experience, right? Life experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, you do stupid stuff when you're drunk. So
yeah. I guess because you said it was after 18, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I was of, you know, legal drinking age. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, you get that stuff out of your system pretty
when you're young, yeah. So okay, so you ended up, and then you went to you said university?
Yeah.
For business?
Yeah. Quick stint at university before I realized that it wasn't for me. And who knows, maybe if I had my you know, acetylcholine in check, maybe studying would be more my thing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think the whole business side of things was not really in my wheelhouse of interest, because I was always interested in fitness, like ever since I think like grade 9, when I started like seeing maybe like a bit more like, I don't know, Muscle and Fitness magazine or something, just seeing like what people were doing with lifting. I guess a lot of it also actually came from just being a small person growing up. I was always a small kid, a skinny kid.
Okay.
I had that insecurity of being a small skinny kid, and you know, none of these girls like me because I'm tiny.
Yeah.
So of course you grow a little bit of a whatever you call that, just an insecurity about it. And you know, the way to fix that was to lift some weights. So I started lifting weights back in, you know, grade 9 or
grade farm gym.
No, like we did have like a I don't know, like a multi exercise like machine, you know, like those plate loaded, like
at home.
Yeah, like it was like, you know, like you had like a pull down bar, a leg press, like a you know,
the multi gym or whatever.
Yeah, it was just like it was like this like piece that had things sticking out of all sides.
All the pulleys are squealing.
Yeah, exactly. So squeaky. Definitely had that, and like not that I used it a ton. Like the high school had a gym, so as soon as I got into high school, it was like all about it. And you know, at first, what started off as just like trying to, you know, fix my insecurity of being small, basically turned into like an actual passion for fitness. And it's funny, I talked to a guy that I went to high school with like a couple of years ago, and he was like, man, you're like the only guy from high school that was like in the weight room that like he said he was gonna become a bodybuilder, and he did. Like 10 years later, or you know, 15 years later, whatever it was. And it was kind of funny because I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I had that goal. I didn't even realize I talked about that, because I don't know, it's all a blur back then, right? But I was like, I didn't realize that I even had that intention. I was just like feeding this, you know, this insecurity of like, I just don't want to be the smallest guy anymore.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think it's a lot of people get into it for that reason. Like they're trying to fix something about themselves. Not that that's the right approach, but you know, we all have insecurities. So whether it's I need better confidence, or I need, you know, less sadness or less unhappiness, like I'm gonna try and supplement it with, you know, exercise or again, building muscle or something. But it kind of naturally turned into, hey, I obviously love fitness, and why don't I try to make a career out of it? So I just did like a little bit of research, found like AFLCA It's like an Alberta certification. And that was like my first ever like education on anything fitness.
Okay.
Did this certification just to get my foot in the door, and actually went to World Health. Back in the day, it was called World Health. And
I think Josh said he was there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he.
I feel like that's where everybody goes.
I think it's like your first. Yeah, it's like the entry level. It's like the A&W. Job, you know?
That was my first job. was A&W.
Yeah, and just like I actually worked for free for a week to get that job.
Really?
They weren't looking for anybody, or so the manager said, anyways. Yeah. And I was like, well, I really want this job. And he's like, okay, well, just like go talk to some people. He actually gave me these little tasks every day. He's like, go get me 3 people's names, age, what they do for a living, and like what their goal is. And he was like, go do that and come back. And so I would like go do that. I go talk to random people in this gym. He like gave me a shirt, like a little uniform, Star Trek uniform as we used to call it. It actually looked like a little Star Trek uniform. It was hilarious. I did that, and I like did these little strange tasks every day for like a week, and then like I think it was literally like Monday to Friday. And I think I came in Saturday or something, and he was like, or it was Friday night. He was like, "Hey, go celebrate. You get the job. You stuck around all week, like working for free, like doing these little things." He's like, "You earned it." So that was my first personal training job.
And what age was this?
2011. So I would have been 19.
Man, that's extremely, extremely admirable. Could you imagine a 19-year-old now being told, hey, you got to work for free for a week?
Yeah.
There's no way they would.
Yeah, good luck.
There's no way they would. Like that's amazing.
But that was it. Like it was like the farm boy mentality of like, I've worked for free my whole life. One more week.
Yeah. Shit. No, that's awesome though.
But that was literally like, he was like, you obviously have good work ethic. Like I'll hire you based off that.
Yeah.
We don't even need anybody right now. But he was like, you obviously have good work ethic. That's what I'm looking for in people. So managed to get my first gig, and yeah, I mean, the rest just kind of kept evolving. I, went from World Health for a couple of years, and then I actually went and did a personal training diploma.
At where?
It was called Elevated Learning Academy. They actually had like
I've heard of that, yeah.
PT specific diploma.
Okay.
And you do like a whatever, you do like a practical, I guess, like position at a gym and stuff like that. So I got like taken under the wing of this guy. I'll give him a shout out, Jeff Aker. He literally kind of mentored me from being just like this kid who lifted to someone who actually knew how to lift, or like knew what he was doing in the gym, and not just saying, hey, I've worked out before, let me show you what I do, kind of thing.
Look at my abs, pay me.
Like literally when you're first starting out, you're literally like, here's what I do that will probably work for this person. So you just teach what you know, right? And I mean, that's really all you should do, is
we've all done it. Yep.
But I started to actually learn a bit more, and obviously like the schooling helped, but then applying it to the real world scenario. So yeah, and I was like basically self-employed from that point on till now, so like over a decade.
So after World Health, you became self-employed?
Yeah.
Once you got the diploma?
Exactly. Well, and especially because like World Health only has employees, like they don't do contractors or anything like that. And I knew that like I didn't want to be giving people half my paycheck constantly. Like big box gyms, there's nothing wrong with big box gyms, but that model must require them to take 50% of what someone charges, or at least that's what they claim.
I used to
got to do it. Got to pay the bill.
I used to work for Good Life Fitness.
But yeah, like you're giving away half your rate essentially to the bosses or to the organization. So I knew that number one was a cap for how much I could work, because you can only work so many hours a day, and then in that scenario you only can make so much giving half of it away.
Yeah,
you can't charge $200 an hour and expect to be super busy, especially when you first start out.
Yep.
So yeah, I went to a few different places, but I ended up being a Urban Athlete in Kensington, which was a good gym. They allowed me to do kind of like a subcontract position.
Did they do you paid per month or paid per session?
I still paid per session, and it was better, but it was still like a 60-40 or something. Like it wasn't great. So it was good. It was better. And I kind of got taken under the wing of this guy who was really well educated, and he had been in the business for a long time. So I was like, I want to learn. I don't mind paying, for a bit of this education of just working with this person and some of the other people there. And then eventually meeting Leo and King's Fitness, he was like,
what year was that?
Come check this out. I think it was 2018. Like I met him in 2017.
Okay.
Just because my now wife, my then girlfriend, Jackie. We did our first bodybuilding competition, natural bodybuilding, in 2017, and we met Leo and Charlotte because they had just taken over the federation, WNBF. So we met them, and then we kind of got to know them, and we actually became good friends. And not too long after that, he was like, hey, like, why don't you come check out this space? Or like, if you're looking for, maybe a bit more of a lucrative place to take your training, this is what I've got. And he's got an amazing setup, as you know, where he makes it work for the trainers. Like he's not doing it for like, hey, I want to make a ton of money off these trainers. He's like, I'm going to give these trainers an awesome place to train, and they get to keep most of what they charge. And it's for the trainers. And that's what I've always appreciated. But he's been a trainer.
Yeah.
None of my previous bosses have ever been trainers.
Yeah,
they've just been business owners. So they look at it as a business.
Yeah. They only see the
how can I get the most amount out of these people? How can I create more green over my operating costs? Right. So, I mean, it was a no-brainer to move to a place that barely charges trainers to work there. So
I'm trying. I got a bug Leo. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, or he said he would. He just got to give me his schedule or whatever.
For sure.
But trying to remember, I don't think I would have been long after you then, because I remember it was the small area that he was in. But you would have been.
I started at this current.
Oh, really?
It was 2019 when I actually moved ships, but I met him back in 2017.
Okay.
And I had been to the other gyms, like his previous gyms, and I'd been there like for posing and for like bodybuilding workshops and stuff like that. So I'd seen, the other gyms, the Bay gyms, right? Like,
nice little straight and narrow, little tiny area.
But so I think you would have probably already started in one of those ones, right?
Yeah, so I started in the one that was by the impound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I started in that one. Yeah, because then I helped him move to the big one, which was like Leo inspires me. Like I just you're entirely right about like his just the way he looks at things, and it's giving people an opportunity. Yeah, giving people a really good opportunity, and like just to go from like when I met him in the area that they were in and everything, and to go to this like new space and now another private gym, and it's really nice. It's very like heartwarming to watch this all unfold.
Absolutely.
And there's such good people that deserve it. Right? Yeah. I'm not kissing ass. Like I'm just being dead serious.
100%. No, I couldn't agree.
The reality of it.
The fact that people like that do these things for the benefit of everyone else around them. Like they've always been like the most support. Like they're the people that want others to succeed. So like it's only right that they're having awesome success with their business. Like
exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, like Christmas rolls around, they gift us, birthdays roll around, they
absolutely.
It's what you would want. Like although Leo isn't technically a boss, right? But it's like what you would want a boss to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's enjoyable coming in there.
Yeah.
And like you see Leo, and it's like you have that respect as he is the higher power, he is the business owner, but at the same time, you're like, hey, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
What's going on?
And he's also in there doing sessions, right? Like he's still in the trenches. He's still doing training. He still understands what it's like to be a trainer.
Yep.
He's not in this like patriarchal position whenever
way kind of thing.
Yeah, he's like, I'm up here and you guys are down there. No, he's like, I'm just one of the guys. Like I happen to have a space. Like come train here.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to like convince the other people and knock down that wall and just make it one big ass gym. Because even now, And like, it's funny because it's like a double-edged sword, because as I mentioned, it is very heartwarming to see King's Fitness continue to grow.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes you go in there like, oh man, there's too many people now.
It's grown too much.
Yeah, right. So it's like, hey, let's just knock down this wall.
Yeah.
Let's get these other guys out of here, and be nice to have a bigger location. But because he also invested into another gym, didn't he? So Fifth Avenue.
So him and Rod, I believe, partnered to buy Fifth Ave, and they kept it the same. Like it's still Fifth Ave Club. It's not like a second Kings or anything like that. And I think that's kind of just a kind of totally separate but similar venture. But I'm guessing you don't actually know this yet, but they actually are expanding to the neighboring location. Century Casino is out of business.
That's because that's right next to us,
right next door.
That's what I thought I heard. But
there's like a 20,000 square foot space that he's moving into. Like he's
moving Kings into that.
Yeah. So he's just moving next door, but he's over doubling the space.
Yeah, because I heard that. Who did I hear that from? I heard it from somebody, but then it was like, then I heard that they bought Fifth Avenue, so then that's what everybody thought.
Yeah.
Was what that move was. So when's he taking over Central Casino?
I don't know. I think it's still a little ways away, because I'm assuming they're still like, I don't know if they're still moving all that stuff out, or whoever, went out of business or whatever happened. I don't know what happened.
There's so many cars there then.
Well, so the one side, like the bowling and arcade side, is still, it's separate and it's still operating. Like that's not going to change, but it's the whole other side.
Because they're working years of bowling afterwards.
Exactly. Play some arcade games, claw, right?
Do a warm up.
Yeah.
I thought I heard. That's amazing, man. That's so exciting to hear, because I like I said, I heard that at some point, but I wasn't sure. And just to see, it's like, oh, that's a relief, because like things are getting tight in there, like with all the equipment.
With the equipment and all the people. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so then they're completely getting rid of the one we're in now then.
I assume. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know too many details, but I assume it's just going to be.
Yeah, much. Wow, that space is so much bigger.
Yeah.
And moving won't be that difficult then.
No, exactly.
Like, it literally got a couple of pallet jacks and
literally carry
lawn.
Just get one member to carry one piece of equipment over there.
Well, because when we moved from the other location, there was only a handful of us, but it was also a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And I remember nobody was comfortable driving the big truck, so I had to drive the big truck. And we had to move everything over, and we got a lot done in one day, but that just shows you how much he like kind of didn't have at that time. Yeah. Now, even moving such a short distance, it's gonna take a couple days.
Oh yeah,
like it's gonna take a couple days.
Yeah, just getting those, like the sheer weight of plates, right? Probably a fucking 1,000 plates in that gym.
Is he getting more too? Because I saw he was selling some that I figured he was going to be getting more. And that's the cool. Okay, so going back to like talking about like dopamine and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about this gym. It's just always changing.
Yeah.
There's always like a new piece of equipment coming in, or plates are changing, or he moved something around. And even if it's something so simple and not like impactful, it's just the fact that there was change.
Yeah.
Because like I live for change.
Yeah.
I don't like things constantly. Like if you saw how many times I changed this office around, for example, it won't change much now though, because this is just like the perfect setup for the podcast. But the next change will be moving and going to a bigger space and stuff. But like I really like that about Kings, is something's always changing,
always upgrading, always like, oh yeah, let's replace that machine for a newer version,
or something breaks, it gets fixed. Like I don't know what it was like at World Health, but when I worked at Good Life Fitness, they were broken.
Out of service for weeks, months.
Yeah, right? Never fixed them. Because I know at Good Life Fitness, they only had one guy that was for like in charge of like a ridiculous amount of Good Life Fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's what's nice about Leo. Even though nothing really breaks other than those really expensive Prime Fitness machines, which I convinced him to get,
Oh, that's hilarious. Like the free motion ones? The cable ones? Yeah.
So like, and I told him, I was like, you better be getting some money back or something, because like I've never heard of them breaking that much.
Right.
And I remember I went on, like I still really like Prime, like not here to trash Prime, but I went on, it was like kind of trolling, and I was like on their comment section, they come up, they're like, oh, they DM'd me and everything, they're like, please send us this and that. I was just laughing. I was like, it's fine, like it's Leo, is you taking care of it. But yeah, that's exactly it. Like he's got all this new, like not a lot of people understand Prime Fitness. I'm very much and a lot of people don't know this about me either. A lot of people think I'm the functional health, nutrition and everything, but I'm very big with biomechanics.
Yeah.
Like I've also, created a lot of results at that. And the way Prime Fitness has designed their equipment, it's like none other.
Oh yeah,
it's like
top of the line, and like even their cam system of like being able to change like
range and profile
stuff. That's insane. I've never seen anything like that before.
And so that's why I convinced him to get it, because I love them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another like huge selling feature is no other gym has these. But as mentioned, the only complication with that is like, oh, hey, come to King's Fitness. We have Prime Fitness equipment. Most people are like, the hell's that? What the hell is that?
I don't know what that means.
Right. And so like I actually considered doing, like I was going to talk to Leo about doing like a crash, like maybe getting you involved too, and doing like a crash course, like explain to people, do a video why this equipment is so great, and like Kings can post it on their thing. And just like, because when you see what you can do with that equipment, as you mentioned, the cam system, or just the way, you know, like for example, the way because like how tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
Right. So I'm like on a like good day 6'1". We'll call it. Okay. And I know that because a girl measured me once. And actually, I'll tell you this. People will laugh at this. So I was on dating apps before. Yeah. Right. And I put that I was 6'1" on my profile because when I go on an inversion table, that's where I set it. And that's where I'm at, like the perfect what it says. Right. To the inversion table. So I just put 6'1". Well, I went and met this girl. And she was 5'10" on her profile. And so I meet her and she was like 6 feet. Oh, which is fine. It's totally fine. And I said to her, I was like, you're not 5'10". And she's like, yeah, I know I'm more like 5'9" or whatever. I'm like, what? I was like, no. I'm like, you're almost like 6 feet. And she's like, no, you're just not 6'1". And I'm like, yes, I am 6'1". She's like, goes and grabs a tape measure. I was like, oh God, please be 6'1". And she's like, oh my God, she's 6'1". I was like,
right, big breath in.
Right? But anyways, where I was going with that is, although you are shorter than me, if you sat in my car, you would have to move the seat back.
Right.
Because of the way my body is, like the way my structure, right? So on a regular seated leg curl at any other gym, my hamstrings are just, no matter where I put, like you're supposed to put at the anchor point there and everything.
Joint. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. But that Prime Fitness equipment, even I have another good friend of mine, Sean, even he was just like, wow, like your hamstrings just get annihilated.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never experienced that before with any other seated leg curl.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about those machines, specifically, the hamstring curl. You can see the hamstring. Nothing's blasted my hamstrings like that thing has. Like just debilitating.
Yeah, I know. That's really good. And then you can even and like for those that don't know what Toby was talking about, like the cam, is if you could change the cam so you can make it harder at the top of the movement or harder at the bottom movement for simplicity's sake. And so like what you could do is like you could make it harder in the shortened position, fatigue that aspect, and then like superset it and change the cam, and so it's harder in the lengthened range now, and hit a totally different stimulus. And you can do that all just sitting there.
And like all the research now is coming out saying like load in the stretch position is optimal, right, for growth.
For
not all the time, but like most of the time. And so like having machines where you can actually adjust where the tension is the highest or where the intensity is the highest actually gives you control over that versus just being subject to the exercise, right? Like usually hamstring curls don't have a very high load at the stretch position because it's usually either at complete rest or like the lying hamstring curl, like
you're not hinged at the hips.
You're not hinged at the hips. You're not getting stretched, or you set the weight down or whatever. So like it actually gives you that opportunity to like train it optimally. Sure, it's probably like the difference of like maybe 5% gains, but
that could add up over time.
Absolutely, right? Like 5% over the course of 5 years. Like you're gonna.
Another big thing I like too. Is okay, let's say you want to lengthen the hamstring, so you could do that seated leg curl. You could set the cam position to the length and then lean forward to get more stretch, which is better than somebody who, let's say, has a lower back issue doing RDLs, or like you have a female where they have already overdeveloped traps, so you don't want to contribute more to that overdevelopment. So you put them on a seated leg curl and you hinge at the hips and you do that. Great way to hit them in the lengthened position.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so like that's what's so amazing about that equipment, because most equipment, so like take the lying leg curl, for example. The blue one in the corner? Right? That one, the resistance profile is backwards.
Exactly.
It's heaviest at the bottom, where you want it heaviest at the top. Now, sure, you could still utilize that portion. I would prefer the seated leg curl or RDL, but theoretically, most people are going to hop on the line leg curl to be more biased towards the shortened position.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where that machine is a little bit off.
Yeah.
Right. It's same with like leg extension.
Yeah.
They'll do the complete opposite. Right. Yeah. And so it's just the way cams are designed. And so when you look at it, and so what we mean by cams is think of it as like a moon shape. So when you adjust the cam, if you want it heavier in the shortened position, as you, let's say a leg extension, you extend your leg, that cable is going to be further away from the cam, so all the tension is pulling. But if you want it on the bottom, the cam is moon shaped, so now the cable at top will be resting on the cam, decreasing the tension at top. But as you come down, because what a lot of people are unfamiliar with, let's take just an example. Well, no, cables, dumbbells, anything. The further you are away from the joint, the heavier it will be. So when you're talking a dumbbell bicep curl, when you're standing there normally, arms at your side, when you're mid, it's going to be heaviest here because it's the furthest away from the joint and gravity.
Yeah.
Right? When you're on a cable machine, if you want it to be heaviest in the shortened position, you're going to set the cable up here because it's further away from the joints. And I guess for viewers that aren't watching, it's further away from my elbow. But if you're watching, if I adjust the cable down here, now it's closer. It's going to be easier in the shortened position. Yeah. Right. And so if I want to hit it in the lengthened position, I'm going to face away and have the cable pulling from behind me furthest away from my elbow. Yeah. So it's like tricep crossovers. If you want to make it harder in the shortened position, just step back more. Yeah. Because then you're moving that cable further away from the joint. And the same goes for like a barbell RDL. Yeah. That's why dumbbells aren't as efficient. They're not wrong, but they're not as efficient because most people ride them too close to their legs.
Yeah. And they have those dead zones too, where there's literally no tension at the bottom or at the top or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You can just take breaks.
Right. And so that's interesting that you bring that up though, because there was some controversy around that. And you could look at it in two lights. There is, yes, you are decreasing tension off the muscle, but it also does give you an opportunity to use more weight.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. Like you take those micro breaks, right? Rest pauses or whatever you want to call it. And it'll give you like more output over time. Yes. Right? In terms of maybe adding a bit more weight or whatever. Yeah. And that's totally fine, I guess, if you control it or if you can track it. But that's the thing, right? Is like, are you counting how long you pause at the top of a bicep? Or do you just start to pause longer as you get tired? Right? Or do you wait at the bottom of your bicep curl a little longer? Right? It's just one of those variables. Like if that variable's removed, then there's no option to like cheat yourself, really, I guess. And that's I'm not like disagreeing by any means. No, I think it's one of those things where it's like it's a tool, right? Like resting during your set is a tool. Yeah. But if you're not tracking it or being consistent, then your body's going to screw you over because like it's going to look for path of least resistance or I don't know.
You're meant to survive.
Exactly. It's going to try to conserve energy in some way by just resting it. Yeah. Fraction.
Well, that's like with the bicep curl when you start to do this instead of staying at your side. Yeah. This makes it easier.
Exactly.
That's why I program tempo. Yeah. So in my workout programs, if I want you to pause at the top, you should always be pausing at the top because I have it programmed 3011. So that goes back to what you were saying about tracking. You have to track that. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you did it one workout and then you didn't do it the next, then you're not getting the same results.
Yeah. You didn't get weaker. You just made it harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or vice versa.
Yeah, on that, I don't know why this just came into my head when you said that. It's like comparing yourself. So let's take Mark. Okay, how tall is Mark? What, 6'3", 6'4"? Probably he's a tall guy. Same with Matthew, right? And these are other trainers at King's Fitness. And his arm span is much longer than ours. Yeah. So a 10-pound dumbbell lateral raise to him is going to be a lot heavier than a 10 pounds to us.
Yeah, it's probably like, you could probably almost say like 10 pounds to him is probably 15 pounds to us, relatively. Yeah. Right? Like
that moment arm, that distance away from the joint.
Probably 6 to 10 wingspan.
Exactly. Yeah. And people don't understand that and they compare. Yeah. And they compare this and it's like, oh, like I lifted more than that guy or whatever. I'm like, but your arm span is half. Yeah. So when you see a guy that's 6'4", squatting 400 pounds, you're like, okay, that dude is strong. Yeah. Like he's got such a long way to go.
Yeah. So much more distance.
And so much more tension. Yeah. Like, and a lot of people don't understand that. Sometimes I don't take that away from people though, because if it makes them feel better and like be motivated and work harder, all the power to you.
Yeah.
Right. All the power.
They're shit talking.
Yeah. It's not in more ways than you, right? Because you'll get once again, I promise I'm not knocking on anyone, but you get shorter, small girls that are hip thrusting like 400 pounds. Well, for one, their lower back is on the bench, not their shoulder blades, and they have like this far to move. Right? So it's like, now put your shoulder blades on there, that weight's getting cut in half.
Yeah.
Because that distance between the joint is so much further, which is increasing the amount of weight.
That's, to be honest, it's kind of what makes me laugh about bench press at powerlifting meets.
Yes.
There is such a dramatic difference in like range of motion when you do like, I don't know, I guess what you would consider a normal bench press versus like a competition where they go as wide as possible and they arch their chest up and they literally don't even go past 90 with their elbows. They're just like,
so where did these come from?
I think it's just like, I don't think they were able to regulate how wide you need to, or how narrow you need to keep your hands. Maybe
someone just took advantage of it.
And I think because you can't regulate, like, it's kind of like the squat thing. It's like, you can't tell someone where to put their feet because everyone's hips are going to be different. So like you would get into like gray territory with telling someone how wide they need to squat or how narrow they need to squat. So that's why sumo exists.
Yes.
Because that's the extreme point of width that they can get away with, essentially, is right up against the rack or right up against the plates with a deadlift or something. And it's the same thing with bench. It's like, that's just the limit to how far I can take it. And
I used to knock sumo a lot, mainly because what like people think it's great for XYZ when it's not as efficient as other movements. But then at the end of the day, even if I'm sumo squatting 400 pounds, I'm like, there's a lot more weight that I can squat.
At the end of the day, it's all hard. Like, it's not like none of it's like, oh, it's magically easier. You can do 200 extra pounds if you do sumo or wide. It's like, no, it's all still really heavy and hard. Like, props to any powerlifter. But it's just funny when you sometimes look at, like someone benching and they literally move the bar like 6 inches.
I know.
A lot of bench.
I know. It's insane. And like, that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to get Leo on here, because I want to talk to him about that, because that's like what he does a lot of his powerlifting or whatever. And I've always been curious as to like how that came to be. Yeah. Right. But I always tell people like the difference, like, and you talk about like being a farmer and everything, like you hear that term farmer strength, because there's like, yes, research has shown that more muscle does mean more potential for strength, right, but the strength mainly comes from the central nervous system, right? And so farmers, like, I've done obviously not to your extent, but I dated or was a horse trainer, so I like throwing bales around and stuff like this, so I had a little bit of experience of the farm life, not like I said, just a very little, but like you're using a lot of joints, and you're doing a lot of things, and like that taxes your CNS, right? And like that's how I explained to people. I said the difference between bodybuilding and powerlifting is bodybuilders are trying to find the most difficult way to lift that weight, where powerlifters are trying to find the easiest way to lift that weight.
I've literally used that exact same explanation to people, because I think it's hilarious. It's like, they're trying to find the most efficient route, and whereas like bodybuilders are like, how can I make this even harder? How can I make this worse? You know? and like less efficient.
Exactly. And like, I don't know if you saw my story recently, but I shared there was a recent study showing that, and there's been more, saying like, you need to change your programming up. So like bodybuilders should be doing powerlifting for maybe short periods of the year, because the stronger you are, that can potentiate hypertrophy. So for those that have worked with me, so like I kind of went on, like it kind of was like, oh, this is for you haters out there, because a lot of people have questioned my periodization. And like periodization really works well with like diseases and such. Because are you familiar with something called a medication known as metformin? So metformin, what it does is it stimulates a molecule called AMPK. And that opens up your GLUT receptors and your GLUT4 receptors, and so you need less insulin. Right? That's how they use diabetes, address diabetes is one way. You can do a training phase that does the exact same thing as that. Stimulates that AMPK molecule without the side effects. and it improves glycogen retention and GLUT4 receptors. So it's a really good phase to use to like before a show when you want to carb up. It's the simplicity of it.
It makes you really like insulin sensitive.
But yeah, but it also really fills you out. So I actually have a video on YouTube. I gained 6.6 pounds in like 5 days.
Nice.
And it was all temporary. It was all just glycogen.
Yeah.
But I did 1,200 to 1,500 grams of carbs a day.
Yeah.
I did 8x8 sets. 30-second rest periods, all shortened position exercises. And that stimulates, like you'll just soak up glucose. So when I have somebody with diabetes or high inflammation, because we know inflammation will create insulin resistance, I will use this training phase.
Interesting.
And it will drop their blood sugars and it will decrease their inflammation without using any medication. So what you could do that in terms of like, let's say performance or bodybuilding is you come in here, you do a strength training phase, powerlifting phase, you improve your CNS, you become stronger. Then you go into this AMPK training phase, you increase your glycogen retention, and then you go into hypertrophy. So now you have more strength, more glycogen retention for more output. And you improve your hypertrophy phase.
And then you push the high volume. Interesting.
And so that's what that study was showing. Right?
You have to like show me that study. That's interesting. I've never heard of that.
I can't say his name, Melon Helmsens or whatever.
Menno Hensel.
Him. Yeah, he shared that study or whatever.
Bayesian bodybuilder.
Right? He's so hard to understand sometimes.
He is, Dude's smart though. And he knows how to like break down studies and information.
I always say that. I believe that is a very big sign of intelligence, is taking something extremely complicated and being able to teach a child. Right? And I think that's something that I've been working on a lot over the years, because it doesn't matter how much you know if you cannot,
if you can't articulate what all the crazy shit going on in your head. Right? That's what and this is such a random tangent, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson is like so well known for that. Like he can take physics concepts and explain it to someone who doesn't know anything about physics, or like I've always like I'm a bit of like a space nerd. Like I
hear you. I
love everything about that, and like planets. I'll just stare at the sky sometimes and I'm just
beautiful, man.
I'm just beautiful. Like whatever trends.
Have you listened to Neil deGrasse on like Joe Rogan or something?
I have.
It's so funny because Joe can't get a word in at all.
No, he's just and like he'll actually interrupt him like no.
And I think Joe accepts that going into that. Right. But I agree with you. I love space. It gives me a headache though. Just try to think about it.
Absolutely. I think it's healthy to have an understanding of how complicated and like vast the universe is though, because sometimes when you're bogged down with like stupid shit that's actually quite trivial, it can be a good reminder that it's like, oh, this is just like a silly little problem that I am giving way too much power over myself. Like, I don't know, like dog pees on the carpet. Like sometimes you're in a like pre-stress state and it's like, like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me right now. And then it's like, no, wait.
Exactly, right?
This is super trivial.
Do you believe there's life out there?
Yes. Because I think, and I mean, I don't know any of this because I don't do these crazy calculations, but they've essentially calculated the sheer number of possible planets in the Goldilocks zone, like the zone around, like in proximity to the sun that can support life, right? And they said just
light years again?
I don't actually know. I don't know the value or anything. I would try to remember what we are from the sun. Anyways, but there's a zone where it's, it's not too hot, not too cold for life. And they've calculated out how many how many planets are in that zone and how many there are in the universe. And they're like, there is too many to say that there isn't like a high probability of life. They're not saying like for sure, but it's like the I guess the sheer number of planets in that zone, because every star you see at night has multiple planets, and we're seeing like teeniest fraction of those stars because we have such a small amount of visual capacity. There's literally like, this is probably like, I don't know, 0.01 0.01 of the stars out there or something. You know what I mean? Like it's an insane amount. And all of those stars have planets, and a good chunk of them have them in that zone. It's like, how could there not be? Like there's literally, out of 1 billion planets, how could there not be at least a little bit of life, right?
Right.
And that's when
it's so overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, but it's also like amazing because you're like, oh, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And maybe we happen to be on a similar timeline, because it's like, I don't know, and we can get into aliens right now. It's like, you know, why haven't we been visited yet and all this shit? And it's like, well, you realize that like we'd have to line up just right in terms of our timing, because like our moment right now where we're alive is such a small sliver in the grand scheme of time.
Nobody understands that.
You know, like if you think of it as like a 24-hour day, we are 1/2 a second of that entire day. Is our lifespan. And the fact, like, to expect some other alien to also be traveling through space during that time and happening to, you know, come upon us, it's a very small probability that they would notice us, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they would also have to be around for a long time or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that one. Another one that I really like that makes you think.
They see us and they turn away.
Not that.
Fuck these guys.
On that. But okay, so you know the stereotypical alien.
Yeah.
Right? Like so if you look at the way society is going, okay, everything's becoming much more convenient. We're talking about neural linkage with our brain and everything. We're having less children, all that kind of stuff. So now we see like the stereotypical alien, which is like a big head, no sex organs, no muscle. They think aliens are us from the future. Is what they think.
Yeah, I've heard it, because like that's where it's going with like, especially with all the like, I'm trying to remember what the term is, but all the like basically hormones that are in our food and all that stuff, like everything that we're accidentally changing in ourselves, like through like toxins and plastics and all that stuff, it's physically making our sexes less far apart, right? Like men, like I guess female and male are slowly becoming closer together because of like all these like chemicals and stuff we're exposed to. So like it's not unlikely that eventually we'll be this like unified entity of just like sexless,
right?
Technologically.
Well, did you know? Oh, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say when you mentioned like our stereotypical like vision of what an alien would be, I've also like I really like this approach where it's like, what if like aliens don't look at all like us? Like we create this image of aliens in our head, and it's like, oh, they have a head, they have legs, they have arms, they have 5 fingers or 3 fingers, but it's like, that's the furthest that our brain could get creatively. It's like they could literally be pure electricity. They could be like dust, or they could be like smoke, or they could be, you know, water, or, you know what I mean? Like they could be a completely different shape or like reality in a sense. Like they could be something we don't even interact with. You know what I mean? They could be something we don't even see. Right?
Yeah, so
and that's like the craziest part. It's like they also might not even be like humans, or even on the same like plane as us. And that's the craziest part. It's like there's probably aliens here right now.
Yeah, they're watching
us. They're like, look at these fucking morons.
People are listening. Yeah, people listening to like, what the fuck are they talking about? So, anyways, well, let's get back to physiology then. I could do a whole podcast talking about aliens.
Maybe you should do an after hours,
right?
Whiskey and you know, some candlelight,
and then shit.
Just talk about aliens.
100%. I would still be game for that. But I want to comment on your where you were talking about how we're talking like male and female becoming closer. I saw today that testosterone levels are down 25%.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt real quick. I heard this weird thing where like apparently, and this is really random, but like they were saying that like penis length is getting longer.
So I heard that.
What is up with that? Okay, I heard about it. I didn't look into it.
The only thing about let's call it
opposite of like the hormones. The hormones are going in the opposite direction of like
right. But let's call that news.
Yeah.
Okay. I do believe. Go ahead. Everybody can make fun of me, unfollow me, whatever. That there's an agenda behind news.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so by like they're trying to take away. Potentially, I'm not saying this is it, but there could be the fact that they're maybe trying to distract and take away from what is actually happening. So everybody's in fear that testosterone is declining,
right,
that penis size is decreasing.
Yeah.
So let's say otherwise that no, it's not, and then take that away from people.
Right.
So then they can maybe calm down or whatever, and then stop worrying so much.
Yeah.
Or who knows what kind of agenda that could be going on with that. The only reason why I could see that maybe because think about like you talk about the hormones and everything in our food. Like when I was, I don't know, 10 years old, girls and boys my age looked 10 years old.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're going. Yeah.
Do not look 10 years old.
Yeah.
They do not look 10 years old.
100%. And even like just the early onset.
My niece was 9 years old when she got her cycle.
Yeah. Early onset, menstruation, I guess.
Yeah.
Like puberty is hitting 3-4 years earlier than it was when we were kids. Yeah. And like, I'm assuming relatively going to keep pushing back a little bit, but yeah, absolutely, there's definitely like some impact of either like the hormones we're adding to our food, like our animal products, or like the chemicals we're spraying on everything.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, because we talk about like endocrine disruptors, so we're increasing estrogen within the system, and estrogen does cause growth, which is one of the reasons why like especially girls that are 10 years old don't look 10 years old, because they grow from the estrogen, especially like you look at like estrone or E1, right? That really helps with like sex development and stuff. But then when you talk about like, a lot of people don't know this, men and women have the exact same sex organs. They are just rearranged. Yeah. They are rearranged and genetically coded differently. That is what it is. Yeah. Right. So to say that we are coming closer is not a far-fetched concept.
No, because we start off the exact same, right? And then we just
something happens and
you slowly develop a little bit differently, but yeah, absolutely.
And well, then you take like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the tranny. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm not sure 100% the correct term. I apologize to anyone trans, right? But so that just shows you the capabilities of the human body. Yeah. Right. And everything. And so it is the stuff that's being put in our food, pro-hormones, and it's also all the endocrine disruptors, but it's even things like this carpet alone is not good for you. Yeah. Right?
It's purely like plastic based.
Formaldehyde or whatever, and is housing bacteria and releasing toxins and everything in the clothes we wear, these chairs we're sitting on. It's like, yes, you are designed to manage this stuff, but you can only handle so much. And here's what I tell people. Like I was mentioning this to a client the other day, and I said, we're all just floating around in canoes trying to get through life right now. And we all got holes in our canoes, but some have bigger holes than others. We all have a means of trying to get that water out of the canoe, whether that is a pail or something, right? But some of us, as mentioned, have bigger holes and smaller pails. And so we're beginning to drown, and doesn't matter how much water we shovel out. Yeah. Right? That hole is still there. Yeah. And this is where like, I used to be really big on supplements. Yeah. Like really big on supplements. And I've mentioned this, I think like almost every podcast, really big on supplements. And my clients know that, friends and everything. And that was literally just trying to give you a bigger bucket. Right. But it wasn't patching the hole within the canoe. Right. Yeah. And you go like, well, why we all got holes in our canoes? It's just life. It's just, like the other day, I got a GI map back and I was explaining it to a friend, and he says, well, why is he like that? Why is this person like this? Why are their guts like this? Or why is everyone like this? Because I constantly show him the GI maps and explain the GI maps to him. Yeah. And I said, it's 2023, man. Yeah. Right? It's 2023. It's the air we breathe. It's the water we drink. It's the clothes we wear. It's the food we eat, but it's also the stress that we are under. Yeah. Right. And when I'm talking stress, it's like we definitely perceive it differently. Right? Because like we were saying, trauma, right? Dog pee on a carpet can be really stressful to somebody. Yeah. Right? But could you imagine what the stress is like for a veteran who fought in the war? Yeah. It's a totally different aspect. And so we perceive stress differently because our stress management has become less efficient. Yeah. Right? Because of the toxic burden and all this stuff that we are ingesting on a daily basis. Yeah. So our liver is compromised, so we can't respond effectively to stress with lower amounts of stress hormones. Yeah. It needs much higher amounts of stress hormones. Yeah. right? And this is why, you know, all these things are happening, and we're getting research saying that 25% decrease of testosterone.
Yeah.
But what would be interesting to see is this 25% of decreased testosterone, where's the estrogen at?
Yeah.
Is the estrogen high? Is it going coincide? Like, are these men also experiencing much higher levels of estrogen? Where's the androgens at?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like typically they try and stay balanced, right? Like your body ideally, if it experiences a drop in testosterone, it would probably, maybe at first it would be off, but like then it would downregulate estrogen.
No, because what would actually happen is most cases is look at why are we getting this drop in testosterone? Is there some sort of pituitary issue? Is there a luteinizing hormone issue? Right? Look at the drop in testosterone, but most of the time it's because, think of it as like, once again, it's a pail, and we're with the obesity, the rise in obesity is just one example. So increasing that aromatization. So you're draining out that testosterone is what's happening. Right. So as that testosterone lowers, the estrogen actually gets higher.
Yeah. Okay.
Is what usually happens.
Yeah.
Because that testosterone.
Well, this is in like unhealthy individuals.
Yes, for the most case. And then when you talk about age-related drop, yeah, like estrogen's going to drop too. And this is where like, you know, a lot of men don't realize erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
Has how much it has to do with their estrogen.
And a drop in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So when I heavily abused steroids at a young age, like heavily abused them. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with them, but I was doing 5 grams plus a week of testosterone. I'm lucky to be alive.
5 grams?
Yes. I'm lucky to be, this is my addictive personality. I'm very lucky to be alive. And I suffered erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can I be suffering from this? Because
got so much testosterone.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It was my estrogen, because I kept, you're on testosterone. You need to take aromatase inhibitors. You need to tank your estrogen or whatever. So I actually really screwed my estrogen up.
Yeah.
And when I did a Dutch test, dried urinalysis test for comprehensive hormones, I had like no estrogen.
Yeah.
But what I kept thinking I had estrogen symptoms.
Yeah.
And what happened though is I cleaned out all my good estrogen, but remember how I said you got to get it out of the body?
Yeah.
Well, it was all backed up into the bad stuff, into the bad estrogen, into the bad pathways, into the inflammatory proliferating pathways.
Yeah.
And that led to things like erectile dysfunction, which destroyed my confidence.
100%.
Absolutely. It destroyed relationships. Like, it was horrible. It was a horrible, horrible experience. And so a lot of men, we demonize estrogen. We think estrogen is so bad. Yes, in high amounts. Yes, in low amounts.
Yeah.
It's that achieving that optimal. But like, a lot of men think, we need to tank it. I want to lose weight, so I need to tank estrogen. Yeah, okay, maybe you want a little bit lower estrogen when trying to burn fat.
Yeah.
But don't tank your estrogen.
And
right?
like, it's super important for building muscle and recovery. Like, it's important for growth. The growth pathway. Like
insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, it's not a bad thing. Again, as you said, like, you just don't want it to be too high. Yeah. Or again, too low.
Or like what'll happen that I see what a lot of men do is they speed up a CYP enzyme, CYP3A4 it's called, which will convert estradiol, which is E2, into estriol, which is E3, which is a less effective estrogen. And that's what occurs as well. And then once it goes into that E3, right, it goes down different other pathways.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that occurs. Like, that's why like habitual caffeine drinkers, because it speeds up that CYP enzyme. So a lot of the time, habitual caffeine drinkers, they will have less estrogen.
Yeah.
Because they just keep shuttling it into the less effective, so they're not using their estradiol.
Is like, and what's the like pathway for that? Like, what's causing it to go from E2 to E3?
That's that CYP enzyme. There's a lot of things that promote there.
There's the CYP enzyme then.
So like caffeine. Things like caffeine, pesticides, toxins, stress, like all that kind of stuff contribute. Once again, though, it's still important. It's just all within moderation. Optimal efficiency. Yeah. And so, a lot of people don't realize, like, they'll have estrogenic symptoms, but they're not like, what estrogen though? Is it like E1? Like, so you look at like very busty women. Yeah. A lot of them have higher levels of E1 because it helps with the sexual development. Yeah. And so that one, then there's a whole different pathway there. And it's just like, you get into a lot of technical stuff with that, but estrogen does catch a very bad name. But I'm starting to see there's a lot out there now that people are like, stop, estrogen's not bad. Yes. It's really starting to come around. So that's nice to see. Because like a lot of people are just like, oh, well, let's take aromatase inhibitors if we're using testosterone. Well, do you need aromatase inhibitors? Well, my estrogen side. Well, why is estrogen high? Are you having trouble detoxifying it?
Yeah.
Is your liver compromised? Do you have high levels of beta-glucuronidase, right? Like, why is that estrogen high? Are you eating out of plastic? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you have to look into why that estrogen is high. Some people, might need aromatase inhibitors.
Yeah.
But it's like DIM. Are you familiar with DIM?
I'm not.
So DIM is what you will find it in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of competitors will take DIM to decrease their estrogen.
Okay.
So they come in drier and leaner. As mentioned, I thought I had high estrogen, so I was taking a lot of DIM and things to lower my estrogen.
Yeah.
But my methylation was poor. So methylation is the end act of getting rid of that.
Yeah.
Well, not the end act. That's like bile and fiber and colon and everything. But it's phase 2 of ridding of hormones.
Yeah.
Well, because I wasn't methylating, think of it as a drain. I was really draining out my sink, but then boom, just ran into the clog and come back up or whatever. And that was from taking a lot of DIM.
Yeah.
So this is why it is important to check your hormones. But the thing is, most people's hormones are going to be off due to not the hormones directly. So like a gut issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I see people like bloated, especially lower distension, especially if it's not SIBO, that's indicating high levels of beta-glucuronidase. And beta-glucuronidase is responsible for like inoptimal levels clearance of like bacteria and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you see really high levels, what can happen is, let's take in the context of estrogen, even if it's good estrogen, when you're done with that, it's got to go. Otherwise, it's bad for the body. You put it in a garbage bag, you tie it in a nice little bow, you send it on its way out, reaches the colon, beta-glucuronidase will go in there and untie that bow and release the estrogen back into the system.
Right.
Causing high estrogen, endocrine disruptors, inflammagens, toxins, you name it.
Wow.
Right? So you see that. So I see that and they're like, oh, I have hormonal issues. I'm like, no, you have a gut issue.
Yeah.
You have a gut issue that's leading to hormonal issues. Yeah. So there's no point in testing your hormones because we know damn well your hormones are going to be off.
Yeah.
So we need to fix your gut. And then let's say we know your gut's in a good position. Let's say you take another GI map and then it comes back. All right, cool. Your normal commensal flora is really good. You have no more overgrowth, or your overgrowth is manageable.
Yeah.
Are you still having hormonal symptoms? Okay, now let's run a hormone panel and see maybe there's genetics involved.
So it's always worth it to make sure your gut's in a good place before you do any type of hormonal testing, because that's going to be
you're just
effective.
You're not wasting time per se, but why is the hormone off?
But it could also lead you down the wrong path if you do hormone testing without going down the gut path.
I've done that many times as a coach.
Right? And you might start, like, for lack of a better term, fucking with your hormones.
Yep.
And that's not, again, the root cause. You're just adding to the dumpster fire at that point.
Yeah. Oh, you got low estrogen. Well, let's supplement estrogen. Well, why do you have low estrogen? Are you on birth control? Are you desensitizing receptors?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have no testosterone or androgens? Right? Are you not aromatizing? Like, I don't aromatize a lot. I don't know at this point if it's a genetic thing or not.
Yeah.
I just don't aromatize a lot. That's why my estrogen is lower.
Yeah.
Because I don't aromatize a lot. So I should not be taking anything to drain my estrogen. Then if I do, zero sex drive, erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
I need that estrogen.
Yeah.
And so that's where, like, a hormone panel taught me that, but it didn't teach me why that's like that.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, the GI map, for example. It's like people when they talk about blood work. Oh, I need to go for blood work. Well, why? Right? We know you have issues. Or it's even like, remember when you were talking to me about your sleep?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the times that can go back to gut issues. Parasites, for example, can really disrupt with sleep cycles.
Yeah.
Specific autoimmune overgrowth. You don't have to have a distended stomach to have gut issues.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn that, because I was like, oh, well, this person has a six pack. They obviously don't have gut issues. No, you could have the greatest physique and still have an overgrowth of bacteria or some sort of parasite or something.
For sure.
But I always correlated it to like a distended stomach.
Right. But that's really just one symptom, right? It's a more common probably, but you can you can also have issues of just not keeping things in there very, very long, right? And you're still potentially have bacterial overgrowth or something.
Well, another thing is too is like, because I had my issues, I don't know if you ever saw my photo, but I was like out to here distended. I hid it.
Right.
I hid it all the time. So you wouldn't ever know.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's another thing too. People could be walking around saying they're fine, looking fine. In reality, they get home like that one commercial with the Japanese girls in the elevator, and then as soon as the hot guy walks out, she lets her bun out. It's like, right? Like that's exactly what people could be doing. Yeah. And so then you don't know, you can't, like you struggle. You say, okay, well, like you're not distended, but you're giving off these symptoms. And like in the past, I'd be like, okay, well, I kind of don't really know what I should do right now with this person. But now I'm like, all right, you got this symptom. I don't care if you're hiding your gut or not. I know something's up.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I don't think I've met one person that has a perfect digestion system anyway. So like there's always something that can be worked on in the digestion. And even if it maybe doesn't address the issue they came to you for, it's going to address something important because, I mean, you know better than anyone that like your gut is like attached to everything, right? Yeah. Including just straight up happiness. Like if anything, you'll fix a little bit of your serotonin, right? Yeah. Like just from reducing maybe some inflammation or some stress, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, bacteria, it creates so much LPS, which is lipopolysaccharides. Yeah. It's extremely toxic.
Yeah.
So if you have this overgrowth, you're just constantly spewing out toxins and creating inflammation. Yeah. Right. And then the immune system gets disrupted. It either becomes weak or most cases becomes weak, especially with chronic gut cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then it's like trying to fight back, and then it causes, because like a huge majority of your immune system is housed in the gut. So then that leads to bloating and issues. And it's crazy like I've taken people that just could not make anything happen in their life, and you address the gut, next thing you know, it's just like they're a whole different person, like as I was mentioning before, like myself, for example. Like it was, I am astonished of who I am today, and that was because of taking care of the guts. And that was like, for me, that was my coach, Blake Grove. Yeah. And if I would have never connected with him, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where I'd be, right? But the thing is like, you learn about this, you gain this knowledge and this experience, and now you can help others. Oh my God, man, it's the hardest cases to work. Like gut cases are so difficult.
Don't you just want me to teach you how to do a squat?
Yeah. So that brings me though. So what would you say is your client niche? Like, what is the majority of your demographic?
To be honest, I've never had like a solid demographic. Like, I mainly work with like guys in their 30s or something. I've always had such an array of like people from all walks of life, whether it's like younger people, like, you know, under 30, or if it's some, like I've had some older guys, and I currently have some guys that are training in their 60s, or I've had a guy in his 70s, women, men. Like, it's, for some reason, I've never had like a demographic, but what I do have is, I think, like a niche in terms of their problems, which is usually, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to generalize, but it's like, it's people that need to work on their habits. Okay. Like, it's, their goals are all different. Like, one guy might be weight loss, one guy might be mobility, or like living more pain-free, like moving more pain-free. One guy might be just like, I want to get stronger or bigger. But it's like, it all comes down to habits, right? The guy that wants to get bigger and stronger, it's his habits around training and around nutrition, right? Okay. The guy who wants to move more pain-free, it's his habits around recovery methods, like rolling and stretching, and his exercise, like his techniques and stuff. The other person that's fat loss, it's their habits around food or around their scheduling, because it's all about like preparation and not being caught off guard and stuff. But it's like, it seems like it's, and I've actually only really realized this recently, where it's like, I'm training, I'm teaching these tools and these skills, but it all comes back to like behavior and habits, and like in like learning how to establish better habits. Because, you know, if I have a client come to me and they're like, I want to lose, 20 pounds. I'm like, okay, here's how you lose 20 pounds. You need to be in a calorie deficit, and you need to, train this many times a week or something. If I just give them that, they're like, cool, I'm nowhere closer to this goal in 6 months, because what it takes to get to that goal is changing your habits that got you to where you are in the first place, right? Like habits are everything. Habits are 99% of your day or whatever, right? Like it's what every decision is based off of typically, unless you're actively trying to change those habits. So long story short, it's, I have this like general client base and general base of like goals and needs that these clients have, but it all comes back to like establishing better habits that will lead them to those goals.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I guess it's like behavior change.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have done, weirdly enough, I did like behavior change like courses and certifications, and I didn't realize how much of that I would be using later and how frequent I would be using. I was just like, I need some CECs. I need to, I need to recertify. I'm going to do this course. And it was like a 6-month, like 2 textbook course. But I was just kind of like, just get the information through. Like, remember this, kind of like loosely going through the motions, so to speak. I wasn't aware of how much of my work was going to actually revolve around that.
Okay.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I just literally, funny enough, I was thinking about it. I was like, I bet Curtis is going to talk to me about like my training and what I do. And I was like, to simplify it down to one thing, it's behavior change.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's really cool. So what would, like, if you had to look at it, you talk about habits and whatnot, what are some of the most difficult ones to work with then? Is it around food or is it?
It's definitely around food. Yeah. Training is 1 hour of your day, right? The opportunity to eat or not eat is all your waking hours, right? Yeah. So whatever, 16 hours a day or however long that is. So definitely the more challenging one is instilling better habits in terms of food choices, because I think we are programmed to eat the most calorie dense foods. Like that's in our DNA. That's our survival mentality, is like reach for the most calorie dense thing, the highest sugar, the highest fat, whatever.
That's why stress is so bad, because it's enlarging your amygdala. And
absolutely. It fuels that, right? We're literally, it's been proven in studies that our food choices are, I don't know, I guess just worse when we're stressed. Like they've done the studies of like how people's behavior change under stress when it comes to food, and it's bad. Like we always make bad choices when we're stressed. Not always, I guess. I shouldn't put that type of spin on it, but typically, so that's a huge factor, is just making better choices when it comes to food. And then I think the other more challenging one is like frequency, because I think a lot of people, I don't know, I think they think just eating less is better, but usually it's not eating less, it's eating more of the right stuff.
Yes.
And often, not necessarily always, but more frequently, because a lot of people will eat toast for breakfast, which is part of a meal, and have some coffee, and then they go all day at work. Yeah. They might even skip lunch. Their hormones are all over the place, whether it's cortisol or whether it's like their leptin and ghrelin and everything, like, and then they get to dinner, and what do you think they want to eat? Like some nice rice and chicken or beef and like some vegetables? Hell no. They're going to order Pizza 73 and like curb their cravings because they've been stressed, like their stress hormones have been elevated all day. And then finally when they get home and it drops down and their hunger spikes, they're not hungry for broccoli, right? So I think like that's probably the other huge struggle, is like getting people to prepare, like plan ahead, take meals to work or take food to work, eat a proper breakfast, make time to eat a proper breakfast. A lot of people just wake up, smash a coffee, run out the door, or they're getting their kids ready, making their lunches, and they don't make time for themselves. And it's hard. It's hard to like wake up a little bit earlier when you want to sleep, but that's part of the habit, right? If you create the habit of getting out of bed immediately when your alarm rings and not giving yourself time to make excuses why you should maybe snooze a little longer. Oh, I'll just grab food at work, it's fine. Right? But no, it's creating the habit of the second I hear that alarm, I get up, I start my day, I start making good choices that'll lead to success.
Don't ask me why, but literally what I thought of this morning, because that was like me this morning. I woke up, my alarm went off at like 5:15. I kind of was like, I do pet the dogs quite a bit.
Sure.
But I was like, they should really make an alarm where like monkeys attack you. They have like no choice to get out of bed. Because everybody has that. So they sold that one where it's like, you have to step on it, I guess, to silence the alarm or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, with
like your full body weight.
Yeah. But then the thing is the people just won't set it.
Yeah.
Right? So the people just won't set it. So there needs to be like something like, like you just have like a herd of monkeys outside your house.
That's so funny.
Attacking you.
Just train your dog to bite your ankle if
well, my friend, his cat's like that.
Yeah.
His cat will bite him right here. I don't think he does it anymore, but he used to bite him right on the bridge of the nose if he wasn't getting up.
Cats are vicious. They don't care. They're like, it's time to eat, dude.
Yeah. Oh, I saw a TikTok the other day where it was a dog was like, hey, why aren't you getting up? And all she did was fake sleep, and the dog went back to sleep. Right?
That's hilarious.
But a cat would be back and wrecking things and everything. And freaking
this is my life. You're just living in it.
Exactly. So no, that's totally makes sense. I like, that one could almost assume that would be the toughest challenges for you and for others as well.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And the hardest part is like when we talk habits, we also look at it as like motor patterns, right? It's also that too. And I was having this conversation with a client the other day, and I said, like, most people wonder why they feel the way they do, but they haven't even gone a week without following something consistently that could potentially make them feel better.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because it's like, let's say every Saturday, I call them free meals. I don't call them cheat meals.
Yeah.
Every Saturday they have a free meal. Well, even if it comes to that point where it's like they don't need it from any sort of aspect whatsoever, they're just so used to following that pattern where they had that free meal every Saturday. So even if they're not hungry, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna eat this. And like for my own personal issue is you like talking about the insecurities and wanting to get bigger, because that's what happened to me. That's why I went on so many steroids, is because I wanted to get bigger. And then I did get bigger, and it sparked love back in the relationship that I thought I had lost, which made things 1,000 times worse.
It just reaffirmed that your choices were right.
Yeah. So for people to love me and respect me, I had to be huge.
Yeah.
So what I still come to is I've gone over that quite a bit. Like sometimes, I still want some size, because of course people are going to respect you more in this industry.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the food, I'll be like, well, I need to eat a whole large pizza, because you got to eat big to get big.
Yeah.
So if I don't eat this large pizza, I'm going to lose size.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is I eat that large pizza, I lose size because I become so inflamed and I don't build muscle anyways. And then I don't sleep and you lose anyways. Right. And so for like, that's my own personal experience.
Lose 2 pounds in pizza diarrhea.
Exactly. Right. Like, and so that's a very hard mentality to get over. But this is why I always tell people, like, this is once again, going back to the guts, because you were mentioning like we are designed in our DNA to go for the most calorically dense foods.
Yeah.
How I explain this to people is your amygdala, how I explain it, look at it as your need. And what I mean by that is there's a bowl of ice cream on the counter and you are thinking with your amygdala, you're like, I need that ice cream.
Right.
But if your stress is good and you're healthy, and you're using your prefrontal cortex, that's your want.
Yeah.
So you see that bowl of ice cream and you're like, I want that ice cream, but I don't need that ice cream.
Yeah.
And then that's how people get through that. And that's why children, they don't have a developed prefrontal cortex.
Right.
So they're just designed to get the most calorically dense food for the least amount of work.
Yeah.
And that's why they eat like pigs.
Yeah.
Most of them anyways.
Yeah.
Right? And so like a lot of people don't understand that. So when you're talking about habits, sometimes they can be so hard to correct because your amygdala is just, it's so enlarged from your stressors.
Right. So is it stress? So like and this is a random tangent, but if you look at like obese children, is that an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex or an inflamed or enlarged amygdala? Like, is it stress causing the Yeah, you know what I'm talking
about.
So like, is it stress that causes like children's obesity, or is it an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex?
Okay, so I'm probably going to catch a bunch of flack for this.
Okay, that's a good thing. No, just kidding. Okay, it is just behavioral then.
Right, it's behavioral, right? That led to that. But then, yes, it's that spiral afterwards because the inflammation led to the enlarged amygdala. It just gets worse and worse.
Okay.
And worse,
Yeah, because...
But it's like, at the end of the day, I love Lee Priest. I would never go for him for knowledge or anything, but he's a hilarious guy. But he said something one time that really stuck with me. He's like, your kids aren't buying the groceries.
Yeah.
Is what he said. Right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I'll probably catch flack for that, and I apologize, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
That is the reality, is if a child ends up obese, it's because they're constantly being fed, which I never understood, right?
They also mimic, right? Like kids mimic.
Yes.
So kids learn all their behaviors from you initially, right?
Yeah.
They do what you do.
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Right? And what I'll say is, I never understood that for the longest time until I adopted Peppa. So I had Heidi.
Yeah.
And then I adopted Peppa, and everybody keeps calling Heidi fat.
Right.
Right? And so I've been limiting her food. But then Peppa needs more food. So then you're feeding Peppa this more food.
You feel bad.
And you feel bad. So then you keep feeding Heidi more food. Or I'm eating food and Heidi's sitting there with just these beady little eyes.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to steak.
Oh, I guess you right? Get a little bit.
And so like, I obviously don't get it because I don't have a child, but I'm starting to understand. It's that love.
Yeah.
It's that love. Children are becoming obese out of love, like, because you just want them to have the best. You want them to enjoy their treats and be happy and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or that's what I kind of feel like, because that's how I feel like with my girls. Yeah. Right. And so like, I kind of like I'll be honest, I kind of criticized for years until I was in that situation. I'm like, wow. Yeah. I was like, because I do feel guilty. I have a hard time giving Heidi less food than Peppa and Lola right now, the foster dog.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because just to save a little bit of money, I mixed like Lola's raw food with some kibble, like a very, very high quality kibble. Tiny bag is still $50, but the girls can smell it. And like I sit on the floor and I feed Lola by hand in a bowl or whatever. And like Peppa wasn't eating her food, she's right behind my sniffing away, right? So now I've given them some kibble or whatever on top of the food they already have. And so Heidi's probably gonna get fatter. And that's what I mean. So it's like, I'm assuming like you're out doing something and your child sees another kid with ice cream and they probably don't need that ice cream, but that kid really wants that ice cream. So
and they look really sad.
So out of love, you get them that ice cream. And I'm starting to understand that now. Yeah. I'm definitely starting to understand that, because like, you just want them to be happy. You want to fulfill their dreams. Yeah. And you want them to be, and you want them to love you too. Yeah. Right? Like, you don't want to be like, it's so difficult for me to discipline my dogs. Yeah. It's so difficult. Yeah. But I do it because I want them to behave well. Yeah. But it kills me. Like, I'll like yell at Heidi or whatever, and then I either laugh or it breaks my heart and I have to apologize afterwards.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And so like, I'm not trying to say like, dogs or children or whatever, but I'm starting to understand, vaguely understand why parents are doing what they do, or why children kind of end up the way they end up in those loving situations. Like, I had I was reached out to once. He was 13 years old. He was well over 300 pounds, and he had what is known as an MC4R mutation. Yeah. And what that is so he doesn't produce leptin. Okay. Right. Yeah. And so then like, of course, I'm doing a ton of research. I'm just like over consuming myself, trying to figure this out. And we work together, and I pretty much treated him like any other normal client, and he lost a bunch of weight. And then I found out it was the parents just kept feeding him prior to this. But then what happened one day, I was like, okay, you're doing so well. Let's give you a free meal. Yeah. That was a really big mistake. Yeah. Because it just went downhill from there. Yeah. I ended up losing him as a client. Because he was lying to me about his weight. He wouldn't send photos, and he kept lying to me about his weight. He's lying to his parents about his weight, and he kept eating and eating and eating. Yeah. Right. And but he could develop that because prior he would be able to just eat and eat with no consequences. Yeah. But it hit a point where it was like, okay, well, this needs to stop because you are severely obese. But he already developed that habit. Yeah. He already had that love from the parents that led to him now he couldn't control himself or whatever.
Yeah.
And amazing kid, wonderful kid. It's just, I totally get that, right? That's why I like that saying, one bite won't kill you. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. It could.
Yeah.
You have one piece of chocolate. You know how many people have one piece of chocolate, go, thank you, yeah, one bite, and then they go home and just stuff their faces?
Yeah.
One bite can do a lot of damage to an individual.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not equipped to self-moderate, which you might hormonally not be able to if you don't have you don't have leptin or you underproduce or whatever. Yeah. Right? That can be really challenging.
Yeah. And it's sad. It hurts. It breaks my heart to see people struggle with this, because you get people who's a motivator on Instagram that constantly yells right now? I don't know. Just you're not motivated, you're not disciplined or whatever. It's first of all, yes, there probably are some people that are like that, okay? They're just not disciplined. Yeah. But you don't know what this individual is going through, right? I remember when I was we'll call it dieting, one of my first times, it was a hard struggle for me. And I'll never forget, it was the middle of the night. I was living with my best friend at the time, and I went into the kitchen. He had pizza. Yeah. Because that's another hard thing when you're in that environment. Okay. So I was eating that pizza, and he happened to walk out. I threw the pizza against the wall.
Wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. But it's you look at it, that's almost a real problem. Yeah. You couldn't even make it through the night when you're supposed to be sleeping. But I knew that pizza was there. Right. I knew that pizza was there. Yeah. So I couldn't sleep, and I went and ate that pizza. Yeah. It's the same with if you gave me a bite of pizza, I'm probably ordering pizza that night. Yeah. Right? And that's why I hate it when people go, one bite won't kill you. Yeah. They just don't understand. They're not in your shoes. Yeah. Or if they have been in your shoes, they have a different personality. Yeah. And they can handle that one bite.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have different trauma. You have a different life. Yeah. So you can never approach an individual with thinking you know exactly what's going to work.
Exactly. Right. You could same thing. We could both get punched in the face right now. Yeah. But it's we are going to experience that entirely different. Yeah. Right. And everybody.
I won't curl up in the fetal. You're going to fight back.
But yeah, one of my ex-girlfriends, she was amazing at the one bite thing. She could totally do it. Yeah. Maybe mentally something was really going on and she just hit it or whatever. Yeah. Right. But she could do the one bite thing and still commit to a diet plan. But majority of the people that I know, right? This is why I praise people. I have one client where their household is full of snacks. Yeah. Because she's the only one committing to a nutritional protocol.
Right.
And she still does extremely well.
It's amazing. That's hard.
And it was it's Sean and Sarah, I remember I babysat Maliki one night and I just raided their cupboards and was eating a bunch of food, right? So I can't have that. You put dark chocolate in my house. Yeah. 92% healthy, organic. Yeah. I'll still eat the hell out of it. Yeah. I'll dip it in a bunch of almond butter and choke on it. And and so it's that environment too. And I think when you talk about working with families, that's got to be one of the most difficult for them.
Oh yeah. Supportive partners or supportive families, if they don't buy in, that's a huge hurdle. Again, you said, you've got clients that have done it, and I know people that have done it as well, where, whatever, the kids or the husband and the kids or whatever are still having, their lasagna or something, and she's, eating something a little less calorie dense or into her plan. But 90% of the time you're gonna be I want to eat with my kids or I want to eat with my family, and screw this, it's just one meal, right? Yeah. And that's a huge one. That's a huge struggle, as well as just the family dynamic. Mm-hmm. For sure.
So what about you in your own experience with, because you've competed and you compete still? Yeah. Correct? So what about you in your own experience? What has that been like? Have you had some big struggles, or has it been, smooth sailing? Or
I mean, I'd say I have a pretty good I don't know, we'll call it a control system, okay. Whether it's, food or alcohol or even drugs. When I was younger, I don't have that, I guess the addictive personality. I can always just say I could do that one piece of chocolate and just leave it at that. However, I discovered that you can't always beat your biology, because I've dieted for quite a few shows now, and especially this last prep, which, you know, coming out of COVID, like I think stress levels are high, whether it's external or internal, in terms of like even, you know, what your body's going through with these, you know, stressors, God knows, you know, vaccines and
yeah,
probably get marked.
Yeah, I'll be blurring that out.
but like, you know, coming out of the last couple of years and having a lot more stress, just in general, I think that played into it, because when I got down to lower levels of body fat for this most recent show, like I've never had to battle the urge to like crush, I don't know, something calorie dense, whether it was granola or like the things that really like, I don't know, I guess stuck out to me, like when I walked by the pantry, was like granola, because I think it's so high in sugar and carbs and stuff.
Okay.
And chocolate chips, again, high sugar, high fat.
Yeah.
And like, there would literally be times where I would I couldn't stop myself from just grabbing a handful and shoving it in my mouth. And I've never had that issue before. So it was a learning curve for sure of like, oh, like this is a strong power that I'm trying to overcome, like inside of me, like this genetic urge to just like stop the low key starvation, right? Like it's, because that's what it is. Like prepping for a bodybuilder show is controlled starvation. Like it's methodical starvation so that you know, lose body fat to a certain point. It's definitely not necessarily the healthiest, but at least, you know, doing it naturally is a little bit healthier than using exogenous hormones and stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, you asked about like just my experience with that. It's up until this most recent prep, it's been pretty, I don't know, I guess not easy, but it's been very like I stick to the plan and I slowly, you know, follow it, slowly reduce calories, you know, maintain training, and it just kind of works.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good in that sense where I can eat the same foods every day, so it makes things a little easier as well in terms of preparing. Like I can prepare all my meals and stuff, and like I can do that. I don't really need that crazy variety day to day. Like I can totally monotonously eat meals. But again, this last prep was very, very different, very challenging, where I was truly battling some like, I don't know, intense urges to just eat.
Was there higher stressors and like away from the whole diet and training?
I think just society was stressed. Like,
yes,
we didn't know if we were going back into lockdowns. We didn't know if, you know, so-and-so was going to suddenly get sick and, you know, we weren't going to be able to see, you know, grandma or whatever it is, right? Like there's a lot of these like unknowns, because it's, you know, again, it's a new situation we found ourselves in, right? Like no one has a ton of experience what we went through. And so I think just all that like unknown and just the stress of being in, you know, this place that we were in, it wasn't anything like specific. It was really just, I'm assuming that's what made it different, because it was no different otherwise. Like there was the same style of prep, if that makes sense. Like it was, you know, we do flexible dieting, we don't do strict like meal plans or anything. So you really just, you hit some macros, you hit some calories per day, and you can kind of just go about your day. Like it's not too restrictive, but for some reason that was not maybe the best approach. So
at that time,
and just because, again, I think if you have it in the house, or if you just have one bite, because I was allowing myself a little bit every day to, again, just have this flexible approach. I was allowing myself to have a little bit of chocolate in the morning, or a little bit of chocolate in the evening, or some peanut butter, or whatever it is, versus, you know, on a strict meal plan, you just say, no, it's black and white. You're just, you're either having it or you're not. There's no like in between. So,
and then if you have it, you need to beat the absolute shit out of yourself for having it.
Basically, yeah, exactly.
It's the hardest
part. Completely off plan.
Yeah,
so
you're okay.
So funny enough, I actually like considered like perhaps doing a strict approach where I just say, there's no treats, there's no, just one bite, and tracking that. Maybe that's a better approach for people that are maybe a little stressed, or people that don't know how they're going to react to having, I guess like super palatable, highly palatable foods in their diet, or even just in their house.
Yeah.
So
yeah, see, that's the big difference. Like, I know you're talking about like your own experience and stuff, but like research versus like practitioner kind of thing. You could have all the knowledge in the world about nutrition.
Yeah.
But if you can't get that person to follow that nutrition, it's for nothing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? You could have the most, what you believe is theoretically written out as the most perfect nutritional protocol. But if that person can physically not commit to this, then it's obviously not the most perfect nutritional protocol.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the big difference between like a coach and like a scientist, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. And I always said that for years. I was like, I'm not a good coach. I'm nerdy as hell. And I had a lot of knowledge, but I was not good at getting people because I either had lacked empathy or didn't understand certain aspects.
Yeah.
But now that I've been through tougher times and addressing things, it's okay, now I'm becoming a better coach.
Right.
Right. Like
I just experience with like real world application too.
100%.
You've taken the research, the theoretical, and you've applied it and saying, oh yeah, this works. And then other times probably, oh, okay, this doesn't quite apply in the real world situation.
Like if I had not gone through a gut protocol, there's no way I'd be able to take my current clients through a gut protocol.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Because you wouldn't have experienced how brutal it is.
Horrible it was.
Like you gotta go through something first.
And it's not horrible for everyone. I shouldn't put like a really bad name to it. I don't want to deter people away from addressing their guts.
Yeah.
I am also getting pretty good at not making it horrible for people through various other mechanisms. But yeah, if I had never gone through it, I would have never known.
Yeah.
I would have never known. Right. It's like I was working with somebody for like marketing stuff or whatever, and they got really upset with me over something. I was like I didn't want to pull that card, but I was like, you have no idea what I'm going through right now. Like I was very negative at the time.
Right.
And like a lot of people experience that about me. Like I was a very negative person. And like, losing relationships and friendships and everything. And just creating this mold for yourself is like, oh, he's just the shit talker, he's the negative person. But I was going through some stuff that was promoting that negativity.
Yeah.
And I'm not meaning like the stressors in my life. I'm meaning what was physically on with inside my gut.
Absolutely.
Right. I was not producing happy chemicals.
And that's it, right? Like if your guts feel like shit, you're gonna feel like shit.
Yeah.
And the thing that just naturally happens when you feel like shit is that you want to shit on other people
because it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Right. It's your insecurities.
And it's actually a low-key dopamine hit, funny enough. Like
it's how people address it. It's how people cope.
It was really funny. There was like this, they did a study with these people, and they actually, like, I think this was back in the day, so like they can't do this type of study now.
Yeah.
But they like hooked people up to like electrodes, I guess, and they were able to push buttons to stimulate certain, like, I think pathways, like neural pathways. And like one was like, like let's say happiness, one was, like frustration, anger, just like all these different things. And like they let them like do each one, or like, do whatever series. And then they were like, okay, now you just like, you can just like do whatever you want now, like for like, as like free time basically. And the button that all the people, not even like most, the button that all of them pushed the most was mild frustration.
Really?
It was like light anger or mild frustration, because it's like, I don't know, I guess there's
release maybe?
No, because if you think about what's motivating to you, if you're mildly frustrated at something, you're probably
Instagram posts have come to me.
You're going to act, right? It's the precursor to action is mild frustration. And like I think there's probably, and I can't remember if they go into this or not, but I'm assuming there's a dopamine release, which then is the
because that dopamine release is you looking to achieve that action.
Yeah, so you're like, this is frustrating me. I'm going to change it by doing this.
Yeah.
And then, your action is fueled by that then. So it's like, it's funny though, but as you were saying, right? Like, why people act out or act badly towards other people when they feel bad is because it makes them feel better. And like, that's why. And that's why I think a lot of people get really addicted to trolling online. Yeah. Because every time they talk shit, every time they, try and make someone feel bad or like whatever they're doing, they're trolling, it's like, ooh, feel good. Feel good here, feel good there. Every time I click send or comment, it's like that little boost, and it's literally like an addiction to just little dopamine hits. Yeah. It's crazy.
With you said with them hitting the frustration, that actually makes a lot of sense now, because you heard I also got to tell you a story about the hitting buttons in the brain after.
Yeah. Is it the pleasure center one?
Where the chick kept getting an orgasm and was told them to take it away, but then would fight people and stuff.
Yeah. I heard about that.
Yeah, it's insane. But when you look, if you ever heard, it's like, let's say you want to start a project, okay? Let's say you want to build a house, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And you start telling everyone that you want to build a house, you are significantly less likely to build that house now.
Really?
Yes, because
I thought it'd be the opposite.
No, because you're fulfilling that now because you're talking about it. So you're kind of fulfilling that by speaking about it instead of actually doing it.
Right.
So that's why they say that's where that work in silence comes from.
Interesting.
I can 100% attest to that.
Yeah.
I would sit here and tell everybody, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I never, ever did it. I never found that drive to do it.
Yeah.
And then finally I've shut up telling people what I'm doing, and I'm actually doing things. And yes, it is a whole health perspective thing as well, but it's also just when I say I'm going to do something and I go into in-depth detail, it's like, you did it then.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
So why do it? Right. And so that, I wonder if that kind of ties into what you're saying. That mild frustration, because if they hit the dopamine hit, it's just done. It's just whatever.
There's no more motivation at that point. Right?
Yeah.
You're
right.
And so on it.
Yeah. That's really interesting, actually. But yeah, I know that one with the woman or whatever. I can't remember how the story fully goes, but she was hitting it so much, it was ruining her life. And then she told them to take it away. And then when they actually tried to take it away, she was losing it, freaking out, everything. Yeah. But it's no different than doing a drug or whatever.
Yeah.
Because what happens is this is what people, a lot of people don't fully understand addiction. And I used to always say, once an addict, always an addict. And I said that for many years because I had channeled my addiction towards supplementation.
Right.
But then once I started learning about genetics, and you have what's known as your COMT, so catechol-methyltransferase gene, that is heavily responsible for the clearance of dopamine. Mine was significantly slow. So I constantly had high levels of dopamine, or my brain tried to maintain those high levels of dopamine. So that's where the addictions were coming from, because I was reaching hard things like racing cars and drugs and such to keep that dopamine level elevated.
Yeah.
But then when you have the opposite spectrum, you have too fast of a COMT gene and you have low dopamine. That's the people like Eeyore, right?
Yeah.
But then they're obsessed with swiping Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't have a lot of dopamine built up. Whereas when you have it on the other spectrum, right? So that's the people hitting the button or doing any sort of drug. It's like cocaine took your dopamine levels to a place that they had never been before. You're like, I gotta get that. That's where the chasing the dragon comes from.
I gotta get back
I gotta get back to that level of dopamine, but you'll never get back there.
Yeah.
Because of the enzyme increase of breaking it down and the receptor desensitization.
Yeah.
And so this is why people get so heavily addicted to drugs, and then it gets into harder things, and then people end up ODing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So when you take care of it from a genetic aspect, you can really help manage addiction. Right. So psychology is not wrong with how they're approaching it, but they're not trained in the genetic aspect. But addressing the psychology, bringing down the stress levels, addressing trauma will affect your genetics. So then in return, yes, that can. But if you still have somebody that is in a very toxic environment, I don't mean bad people. I mean breathing bad air and bad food, mold, water damage, or whatever. Their genetics are still going to be affected. So you can go to all the AA meetings you want. These people will eventually have a relapse.
Right.
Because their genetics are still compromised.
Yeah.
And so they're still searching for that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Right. That's where porn comes in.
Yeah.
That's why people get addicted to porn, because they have this dopamine hit, and then now they're trying to reach that again.
Yeah.
You see those memes where guys are page 999 or whatever, looking for something they never watched before.
Yeah, exactly. What's the craziest thing that I can see now?
And this is why psychology has shown why people getting into really messed up stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is why they're getting into bestiality, or obviously if I ever met somebody like this, I'd want to kill them, but child porn and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're just looking for a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
because there's something that happened in their life that they're searching for this, and they need that really fucked up thing to achieve that within their brain.
Yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of I know psychologists have different inputs and all that kind of stuff. And I'm definitely not a psychologist, but I understand on a physiological level. I've seen it in labs, and I've seen it in practice and everything, what happens to these individuals.
Yeah.
And speaking from my own experience, yes, as we've mentioned several times, everybody is different, but I went from extremely addictive tendencies to where I would scream at someone in Tim Hortons if I didn't get my donut right away because they were taking their sweet time to I don't even care now.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was
tolerance.
Yes, the tolerance level, but that was because I improved my genetic response.
Yeah.
And so now I'm clearing my dopamine properly, but I'm also doing things I don't go on my phone in the morning.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing that I reach for. It is to see the time.
Yeah.
If I'm up before an alarm, but I'm not getting into checking my Instagram. I'm not checking all that kind of stuff. I get up, I drink water, take some morning supplements. I hop in a sauna. I don't know if you saw my sauna out front there.
I did.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah. I hop in the sauna for 15 minutes. I have a shower. I go take the dogs for a walk. Then I check my phone.
Yeah.
And that is how I do it. Otherwise, if I check my phone first thing, I'm on that phone all day long.
Yeah.
Because I initiated that dopamine spike, and now I'm just constantly looking for something all day long.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah. It's quick, right? It's quick to get into that daily habit of scrolling or looking for that dopamine hit.
So before we wrap up, I want to know, let's say you didn't take this path. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you stuck with business school or something. What do you think you would be doing if you hadn't become what you are now, getting into the fitness realm?
To be honest, I actually have thought about this a lot lately. My cousin visited. He's an ex-military guy, and ever since I was a kid, I've thought about going down that path of military.
Yeah.
However, every time I've also thought about it, I've thought of all the I guess I'm trying to think of the proper word, but I've never agreed with any of the agendas that, I guess the American or the Canadian military have had. So it's kind of a hard one where it's I've always envisioned that being a path that I would have taken. I think because it's one of these things of I guess the training, seeing what you're capable of physically is very, very challenging. I've always, strive to see what my body's capable of and stuff. So I think that maybe is, what attracted me to that. But again, I think the agenda probably would have kept me out of it. So maybe I'm kind of answering my own question, which is I may have never taken that path, but it's always been something that's been of
But when did you realize that you didn't agree with that agenda though? Because maybe you would, if you didn't realize before, you could have gone into it.
That's true. Because I think I probably didn't comprehend a lot of that until later in life, I don't know, 20, 25 or something like that. So, but I think to answer your question on a bit more of I don't know, realistic level. Because again, I don't know if I would have ever taken that path, but I've always just had a this thought in the back of my head that I could have, I guess. I think it probably would have gone in the direction of something animal or growing up on a farm, you create bonds with animals. You are working with animals every day. You're also dealing with animals just in the wild, you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? So there's wild animals, whether they're predators or prey, but whether it's wildlife management or even I've always considered rescue organizations super I don't know, I guess just really good organizations to support or get into. So whether it's I've seen wolf dog sanctuaries or just sanctuaries in general where they're taking animals from bad situations and giving them a place to live, whether it's again wildlife management where you're helping proper maintenance of like the wild population. But I think, I don't know, I've always had a connection with nature and the wild, just literally growing up like running through the bush, you know, chasing animals and stuff. Not literally, but like, I literally grew up like running through the bush and like building forts and stuff. And like, so I do have this like, you know, connection that I've built all through growing up with nature. And I think if it wasn't, you know, like dealing with what I'm doing now in terms of like I guess like the physical side of like humans, I probably would be doing something about the physical side of animals. So maybe that's veterinary stuff, or maybe it's just, again, like wildlife management or something. But long-winded answer.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. I was going to say, one way I can tell that you do have like that connection to animals is because Heidi licked you. Because Heidi's very picky or whatever, and if she senses like a decent person, she'll engage with them. Actually, one more thing I got to ask you, because I also want to talk to Leo about this. Because a lot of people have talked to me about it because they look and they look at the WNBF, right? That's how I say WNBF. Do you believe there are people in there that are on hormones?
No.
Because what I was told is that, okay, how do you get tested then?
So the WNBF is super unique in the fact that they do dual drug testing. They do urinalysis on all like winners, but everybody knows that urinalysis is relatively easy to beat if you just stop using hormones and or drugs, you know, a few days prior or a few months prior or whatever it is. We're not doing blood tests to like look for like plastic particulates or anything like that. However, that would be an upgrade, because then you could truly rule that one out.
Well, so that's why I asked, because like when you look at it, you talk about funding. That's why some organizations, people get away with running drugs, is because the organizations simply cannot afford the appropriate testing to actually detect those drugs.
Yes, exactly. Because urinalysis is relatively cheap. I think it's like $50 a sample or something like that, because you send it off to like a lab in the States. But like, I don't know what blood testing would be like. That would, I'm sure, be quite a bit more. I'm assuming you need to hire people rather than just sending off samples. However, the way the WNBF does it is we polygraph every single participant. So not just winners, not just people that are in top 5 or anything. Like every single person, before they're allowed to compete, has to go through a polygraph. And the only reason I say that I'm like sure that the organization is like 100% drug free is because, number one, the polygraph team we have is ridiculously professional. Like they're so good at what they do, and they catch people every show, basically. Every show, I don't want to say every show, almost every show has at least one person that fails, and they're always able to catch someone that's, you know, trying to do it. But the other reason that I don't think anyone is in there for the wrong reasons is because there's not a ton of money in natural bodybuilding. Like our world championships only hands out like $50,000 in prize money to all winners. That's not one person. That's the top people might win $5,000. Like you're not winning enough to justify doing drugs, because your drugs cost more than that per month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Than what you'd win over the...
Like you would literally pay more than $5,000 a month to do drugs to beat some of our natural pros, especially because the genetic anomalies that come through from all over the world to compete at like the WWF world are ridiculous. Like they are the cream of the crop of natural bodybuilders. They look unnatural, but you put them beside an unnatural guy and you're like, oh, they're tiny.
You see the difference.
It's still ridiculously different. Like you put a big Ramy beside our heavyweight winner. Like it's still like, oh, this guy's got like 150 pounds of lean muscle over our guy, right? But to the untrained eye, they're like, oh my God, that guy's ridiculous. He's always on steroids. Like, no, he's just the cream of the crop out of the whole world.
You know what people don't understand too? Natural individuals can come in more conditioned usually.
And we come in way leaner.
Less inflammation, less water retention issues that all the drugs bring on and everything. And then these guys that are beating that though are just significantly risking their life.
Exactly.
Running whether it's amount of diuretics.
Exactly. Diuretics, or I know there's other compounds that help you shed water. I forget what they are. But so there's a few things that I think make it good. And weirdly enough, like not having very much prize money is actually a good thing, because it keeps it for the people that love the sport, not the people that are trying to win. Like everyone's there trying to win, but there's not a huge incentive. So it keeps it for like the people that are there for the right reasons.
Okay. Do you know of a lot of people that have went from natural bodybuilding into different divisions and like began using hormones?
I know of a few. I don't know a ton, but like I know like actually a guy that everyone knows, like Sean Clarita. He's like the giant killer. Like he's the new 212 Olympia winner, if I'm not mistaken. He did his entire career in the WNBF and in other natural organizations prior to moving into the untested federations.
Okay.
And who knows, he may have even went into the untested federations prior to even starting using drugs or whatever. But and funny enough, one of our world champions just went and got his IFBB pro card, still natural,
really,
but just going to show like how crazy some of these top level physiques are. They can still win overalls at IFBB events, which is pretty crazy.
Well, it's funny too, because like we're not putting a bad name on drugs. I never try to put a bad, it's like the people who abuse them, like I used to, but that gives things a bad names. Like, you know, I've said this 1,000 times, drugs were actually founded to save lives, right? But when you talk about like coming out of a natural federation, if you want to win, you're going to have to do drugs.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going up against guys, like you said, look at Big Ramy.
Yeah.
No natural individual will ever get there, even with the greatest genetics on earth, right? You're going to have to run drugs at some point.
Yeah.
And that's why I was just curious, because I was wondering if like people, okay, they got a taste for victory, they got a taste for a little money, and then this division offers a lot more money.
Yeah.
But in order for me to be able to compete in that division, I'm going to have to go on it, hormones.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just wondered how many people kind of take that route, because I do know a lot of females that they end up with a bad coach or something, and they don't place well. So the coach goes, hey, well, if you run some Anavar and some Clenbuterol, you'll do good, but now you got to go in this division. Yeah. And a lot of them will do that because they want that taste of that fame. Yeah. And they want, that to do better. But that's where I have no idea about the WNBF. Yeah. I don't know really anything about judging in there. Not that I know about other federations as well. But where I really struggle with bodybuilding away, because like I said, I don't know how natural goes, is you could have someone, mainly happens in the female divisions, puts their heart and soul into their prep. Maybe they didn't have the most knowledgeable coach, or maybe something happened in their life or whatever during that time frame, and they didn't come in with the best physique, or they came in with the best physique, but they didn't have fake boobs.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right? Or they didn't have the super expensive hair, or the super expensive glittery suit or whatever. Right? That's what really bothers me, because then like you have these individuals that put their heart and soul into something, they don't place top 5 even, let's say, and then they're just crushed. I'm like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's the only thing I can say to that, because like, it blows to put all this hard work into something and to be successful. Like making it to the stage is a victory, but then having this panel of judges say that you were a failure, and taking that on for your entire journey and thinking it was all for nothing, it that sucks. But at the same time, if you're going into a sport that's judged not subjectively, but like, I mean, semi-subjective, right? There is a criteria, but in a way, like people are individuals, so they'll do their best to stay objective to their list of criteria. But if you're going into a sport where you're being judged on your physique, I think I guess you just have to come into it with a mindset of, I can't have any expectations of winning, and I shouldn't allow this like competition or this placing tell me like if I'm successful or not. Because like I don't know, and it's easy for me to say that I've had relatively good success and I haven't lost a ton, so it's like I feel bad even talking about this. But at the same time, like I've gone into every competition thinking that I'm number one, that I'm kind of like a masochist in a sense. Like I constantly talk more negatively to myself than positively. So I'm always like, oh, I'm not going to do very well. I'm probably going to get like last or whatever. And then everything's always a surprise if I do better. So, I mean, that's a good mentality to go into it with, like lower your expectations.
So you get the bar set nice and low.
Set that bar low and everything's up from there. But at the same time, like, I think if you can separate like success from like personal success from like your competitive success, like if you showed up this year better than last year, or if this was your first prep, if you showed up at all, that's a success, that's a win. But if you can, beat your physique from last year or beat your physique from 2 years ago, like if you've just improved on yourself, like if you can try and weight that more than the judge's, placement, that's the longevity in the sport. So if someone's like, again, like, I don't know, saying, yeah, I did a few seasons, but I couldn't win, so I stopped competing. It's like you were competing to win rather than competing to improve on yourself. And so then it's like
that journey.
You're just competing. Yeah, you're competing for the wrong reason. You're competing to win, and that is maybe because you want people to like respect you or something, and maybe that's coming from a lack of self-respect.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I'm competing because I want to see what my peak physical condition is, and then I'm going to improve on that every year and get better and better and better. As long as you continue doing that, wherever you place, like it doesn't really matter, because the competition is just one day. Like that journey that took you to that peak physical condition, that's 6 months or whatever it is. Yeah. Sometimes it's a full year if you're planning bulks and cuts and everything in between. So it's easier said than done, but I think your approach to competition should be, again, it's you versus the rest of the competition.
Yeah. Which I think is probably a little more difficult now because like social media has become such a big thing.
Yeah.
And like that, so like you place good in a show, you don't have to work hard. If you're like, let's say you're a coach yourself, you don't have to work as hard because you have this placing in this physique now that is going to bring people to you. It's almost like you don't have anything to prove, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just like,
or sign up for your physique.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying these people are not knowledgeable or anything. We cannot deny that it's also for this individual.
It's like it's a status and it's almost like a degree. It's like once you place well at a show, or at least get recognized for your success in a show, like there's like this validation of your knowledge, even though you might not know anything and just followed a plan.
Yeah. Right.
But some people are literally going to start messaging you and say, hey, can you coach me? And that person might be like, I don't even know what like calories are. I just follow my coach's program, right? Like they might not know anything, but people are reaching out saying, hey, will you coach me?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know when I was like first getting into this years ago, for whatever reason, people would like kind of like show me their meal plans from other coaches. And then like at the time I may be like, oh, well, like, I maybe wouldn't do that or whatever.
Yeah.
Their response is always like, this is my coach. And they would show me a photo of them, which I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I'm like, this is my coach, and showed him at his biggest, most shredded on stage. And that was your defendant. Yeah. It was like, he looks like this, so obviously he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
And we've come to a time and an age where we realize some of these people are the least knowledgeable people, but what I will say is when you have somebody like that, because this is what happened with my first coach, right? Knowledgeable, but not the most knowledgeable, especially with like more complex cases such as myself.
Yeah.
But whether it was like his physique or the fact that he placed on stage, it was like intimidating. And so you wanted to impress him.
Right.
You wanted him to think good of you.
Yeah.
So he could get like, even without even trying, you would end up doing things you never thought would do, whether it would be like hours of cardio or like starving yourself or whatever, without even trying, because he had this presence. He was huge, he was jacked, he was shredded. So I think that helps a lot too, because I know in my personal experience, I don't have that ability with a lot of clients.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, he didn't even have to lift a finger, and you're like, I'm going to work my ass off.
Yeah.
He told me 3 times a week cardio. I did an hour every day because I wanted to impress him. And I lied. I didn't tell him that I was doing that. And he couldn't figure out why things are moving a certain way in the emails and stuff. But like that's where something with my coaching is like, I feel I'm good at talking with people and relating because I've been through a lot of personal issues. But like for people to go actually like, you know what, I really want to commit to this to impress him. I don't really feel like I give that off because I haven't been someone who is like, I've gone down to single digit body fat.
Yeah.
I've done that and that was not fun. Right. But I've never actually stepped on stage and competed, and I would have never been able to compete, meaning place high with the physique that I brought. Right. I needed more size in the legs and everything, but I was shredded.
Yeah.
Right. I had, visible striations and everything. But it's just, like, especially if you end up working with those kind of individuals, right? They second guess you if you're not someone who stepped on stage. So if you work with like a bikini competitor, right? They kind of like attracted to you in the beginning for some certain reason. But then if they question your modalities, it's like they're going to question them because you are not 200 pounds of pure muscle and 7% body fat year round.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what makes the industry difficult, because then you get flooded with people who don't know what they're talking about. And we're not necessarily at a point where they're harming individuals.
They sure as well can, though. Like, I've heard of people ending up in the hospital for kidney failure.
Yeah. Especially when you're talking drugs.
Cut salt and water.
Do you know what Shelby Starnes is? Sorry? Do you know what Shelby Starnes is? They call him the death guru because he takes these females and they're like the most shredded thing you've ever seen in your entire life. But many women have died under him because he uses like 300 mcg of T3 and like stuff like this. And so like he's like knowledgeable about the drug process and can bring them the results and everything. But like they are harming individuals. Yeah. Like I had a long time ago, I had this girl come to me and like he was on a cover of like what's it called, Magnum supplements and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, you looked great, you looked amazing, very good looking dude and everything, but he was just treating her like garbage and pulling all her carbs, and she was like really struggling and everything. So then her and I started working together, and she went from like, I don't know, 50 grams of carbs to like 350 and like got tightened right up and was one of the best looking at the photo shoot, they claimed. Yeah. Right. But she was like, well, this guy must know what he's doing because he's shredded. Yeah. It was actually my ex. Yeah. It was actually my ex that had to convince her to work with me. Otherwise, she would have never looked at me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's definitely a huge issue with the industry in that sense, but I think people are wising up to it. Like, I think it is changing, because I'd say like 5 or 10 years ago, 100%, it was go to the biggest guy in the gym or go to, so-and-so on the magazine cover, like that's the guy you want. Yeah. And I think people are realizing now, like, and I see it time and time again where like, you'll see a competitor and their coach doesn't even look like he trains, but he's this super knowledgeable guy. You know what I mean? And you see it time and time again now that like the coaches are less, I'm starting to see more coaches that don't necessarily fit the stereotypical bodybuilder coach, like visually, visual physique or whatever. Yeah. And that's good. It's good that people are realizing that like this person doesn't need to intimidate me based off their physique, or they don't need to be the biggest guy to know what they're doing. And I mean, I think part of it too is just like if you have like the proof, I guess, like that helps too. Like obviously like the physical proof, but if you've just worked with a few clients and have gotten them success, I think that's often enough. Yeah. But again, you can't get started like that if you don't have any cases yet. So yeah, it can be tough initially, but I do think it is changing because people are just, I think they're realizing that knowledge doesn't mean muscles. Well, and it's not as simple as like, yes, it's a calorie deficit, but it's not as simple as saying calorie deficit. Yeah. Right. We're now dealing with liver issues, adrenal issues, hormonal issues, psychology issues. Like, it's not as simple as just cutting calories anymore. Yeah. Right. It's like, okay, we need to make sure this is doing X, Y, Z in order for that deficit to actually function as a deficit should. Yeah, exactly. Right. And because people are like cutting their calories and next thing you know, they're becoming water retained and their sleep is hitting the bed and their hormones are getting even worse and everything. And it's just like, food is nutrients, and nutrients is the key to health. Yeah. It's permission slips for the body to utilize to perform tasks that are required for health and vitality. Yeah. And when you achieve that, that's when fat loss becomes much more attainable.
Yeah.
Other than just going down to like 1,000 calories and full cardio and all that kind of stuff. The body just doesn't respond like that anymore. 20 years ago, it would have. Easily would have, right? You just cut all your calories and next thing you know, you're dropping weight. Now, you see it all the time. People are cutting their calories and they're just getting worse.
Yeah. They're gaining weight.
Worse. Yeah. And then you got these gurus freaking out on Instagram and everything. Oh, you're not in a deficit. And then they justify it by, you're in a deficit for 5 days of the week and then you eat this. No, I've seen people follow a strict as hell nutritional protocol for 1,200 calories, no cheating, and they're just not getting results. They may not be gaining weight, but they're not moving anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And their hair is thinning and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you got to fix these systems.
It's happening in other places.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Muscle tissue loss. Oh, sweet, the scale's moving.
Yeah.
Right? But now I have no muscle definition.
Yeah.
Right? That tone look that everybody wants. Now I don't have that tone look.
Yeah.
Because you've taken it away from the muscle tissue.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like everything's slowly shifting and is slowly improving and stuff, but there's still always going to be that outlier. There's still always going to be somebody there that's still like, nope, just a calorie deficit, like the Twinkie guy.
Yeah.
He ate nothing but Twinkies or something and lost weight. So somebody's going to be like, oh my God, that sounds like the most perfect diet ever. Yeah. Let's go achieve that diet. And there's going to be somebody out there that will do that diet and lose weight.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know, tell their friends.
Like technically, right? Your health's just
exactly, right? So
yeah.
Well, man, like we got to do this again. Because there's so much going on in my head right now that I could ask you and continue to talk about. And like, this is great. It's nice because I'm still, getting more comfortable and learning more about podcasting and stuff. And it's great to have, I've been very lucky with the guests that I have brought on that the conversation has been able to really, really flow.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's any sticking points or whatever. Like, unfortunately, the camera shut off, but editing, right? Stuff like that. And so like, I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you came. I think this was great. And we definitely will have to do it again. Some more space talk and all that kind of stuff, man. So just get all over the place. So I really appreciate you coming here, man. And where can everybody find you?
So I say it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And people can find me on Instagram, Tobi S Fit.
Okay. I'll take it in the description.
And I do have a website as well, schulerfitness.com.
Schulerfitness.com.
Yeah, real simple. Okay. I just launched the website, so it is a work in progress. Right now, it's more of like a
jot form. I saw that. I went to the thing or whatever.
Yeah, and it's more just like a store where if people do want programs and or coaching services, like they can read a bit about it. But I'd like to get a lot more, and like there's testimonials and stuff like that. Like, but I'd like to get more like content, like long form content, whether it's articles or just like stuff I write on there. I'd like to have maybe a bit more of like a library of like my competitive work and stuff like that too. So it is growing. Bear with me. It's not great yet, but like,
I know exactly
like all
going through.
Yeah, like all things, like when you first start something, it's a learning curve. So
I paid someone to do my website and she did an amazing job.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job. But prior to that, I was actually losing clients because my website was so bad.
Yeah.
Because I just made it myself quickly because I didn't think it was that important.
Yeah.
And then like I had people that would refer me and then I would like never hear from the person that they claimed they referred.
Right.
And then later down the road when they felt more comfortable telling me, they'd be like, yeah, they would look at your website and walk away.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I ended up investing in somebody and I love what she did. It's a beautiful website. So yeah, it's but same thing. Oh, just please bear with me. It's a work in progress. And you tell all these people, you try to justify everything. But no, it's true. It's like everybody's got to start somewhere. So that's awesome. So I'll tag everything down below where people can find you, man.
Awesome.
And thanks so much again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.